Hello. Hello. Are people there? Is anybody there? Hello? Hello? It's me, Jesus. Hello. Hello. Hello, greetings. Epic debate night tonight, bros and hoes. Um so we're probably going to start with the debate here pretty soon. I know that Rob said something about wanting to start earlier. I need to go get my audio monitors because I just realized I forgot those. So we will be right back. Oh Christ. Oh God, that was like a moment of like sheer panic. I thought I had left my audio monitors at home. Or at work rather. Oh God. Alright, hold on. We're gonna get all set up here and squared away. And then we'll go over our argument real quick, and then we'll give Mr. Noerr a call. We'll get this shindig on the rindig. All right. All right, we are back. Hello. Hey everybody. Okay. So, this is going to be over the thing that I did a research stream on yesterday. It is the Rob seems to think that there is a double standard in the sentencing and not sentencing, the indicting and non-indicting of former President Donald Trump and current President Joseph R. Biden when it comes to their mishandling of classified documents. As we saw yesterday when we were doing our readings yesterday on stream, that's obviously not the case, even by Hur's own admission. Trump had a big part of what's going to convict someone or convince a jury on whether or not somebody is guilty of willfully retaining classified material is that word right there, willful. which is a standard that's been set out in case precedents like many, many times. We've got Brian, we've got, was that Heikkinen, I think is how it's pronounced. Tons of different examples of times that courts have made a ruling on what constitutes a willful nature to break the law, which comes to being charged under the Espionage Act, as Trump is, and as Biden was not. You need to prove that the defendant had the document, and that the document related to national defense, and that they willfully retained it. So what we're going to be looking for from Rob tonight is basically I'm going to ask him to build a case on whether or not he thinks that Biden willfully retained it. I don't know how he's going to be able to maintain this position and also the position that Biden is like a doddering old fool who doesn't even know where he is. So that will be interesting. I'm going to shoot him a message real quick and let him know we're ready to go. We've got got all of our prep sort of pulled up. I'm going to open a new document here. So I can take some notes. Things looking good so far. Okay. So I have the indictment, the report, my prep sheet, and some other reference material all pulled up, ready to go here. Hopefully we make use of that in a successful manner. But yeah. I'll get a little bit bigger of me. Oh, look at my big beautiful face. Look at that. Look at my big empty chat window. Love it. I don't know if he has his DMs on Discord, if he's checking those. Did he tell me to just call him? He might have. This might be my big silly guys. Alrighty. This is gonna go on the YouTube after the debate, but we are streaming live to YouTube and Twitch currently. We will not be playing games during this debate. This is one that I want to actually focus on. I want to make sure I'm really up. Well, we are just waiting on Mr. Noerr. He has seen that message. So I don't know if I'm supposed to be calling him or if he's gonna call me. We probably should have figured that out, yeah? Should I be the guy? Should I call him? Should I power move? Oh, crap. Oops. Pop out. Hmm. Well, that's odd. Sure seems like I'm alone. Did I get debated? Did I do 2.5 hours of prep for no reason? Man, that'd be so stinky. I believe Rob's a better person than that. I have a lot higher faith in him than that. You're muted in the Discord just for the time being. I was in the call by myself for 3 minutes and it booted me. He did put in his stream title that he's streaming a debate with streamer Arch. I'm gonna say that he probably doesn't remember me from the first time that we talked. I did try and clarify in DMs that I go by a Big JC as my streamer persona. Wait, I thought he saw that one. Oh, okay, yeah, he did see that one. So I think we got that all cleared up. God, at what point do I just ditch the Arch Wokehammer thing? It's a funny joke to like exactly one person, and that person is me. But like literally outside of that, like I had somebody unironically the other day on Twitter think that I was Arch Warhammer. Oh God, Rob's dog. Oh no. I didn't even know about that. Oh.
Or Mitt Romney, or Paul Ryan, or Mitch McConnell. I didn't think those people were conservative. I like more of a libertarian type conservatism. Conservatism, one of the things it means to me is fiscal conservatism, fiscal responsibility. Have the Republicans been fiscally conservative? Trump isn't either, don't get me wrong.
Can you guys
So,
hear
yeah,
me?
well, it's accurate to say I don't think Trump's the most conservative guy in the world. Was Bush? Was Romney? Was McCain? Were you working with Democrats to beat them, saying these aren't real Republicans? I mean, come on. And how could you? It's one thing to say that I'm going to take my ball and go home. I don't support any of these teams. But if you're conservative, the diametric opposite to that is was to make Democrats more progressive. Like you're a conservative, and the
He's talking to his audience. Maybe he'll get around to me at some point, I'm sure.
Absolutely insane. 1 second here. If this guy doesn't matter.
Oh, he has to go to the restroom? Oh, man, he got one look at me and he's scared shitless. Nah, I'm just kidding.
But just get this out of the way. That way I don't have to go once the debate starts. So I'm going to put my intro on with the music.
Ooh.
But I will be right back.
That is such a... Okay, that is such a... I want a music intro. That's like way cooler. I want a music intro. How do I get one of that? How big of a streamer do you have to be to have a cool, or can I just do it? Is anybody gonna get mad at me if I have a musical intro and I'm gonna be made fun of for not having the viewership worthy of a musical intro? So I guess the real question is, I probably should I tell him that like oh ha 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 we've met before, like probably, right? Like that seems like what would be most honest. It'll be funny whether or not he does remember me. I don't think that he will. I have completely fucked this. Okay, yeah, completely messed this up. I had my desktop all organized, all nice. I had it all ready to go with all my materials and such. Now nothing. I'm trying to just scoot it in here. My man uses X for his DMs and then Discord for his calls. What a complicated man. What an enigma. Mr. Rob Noerr. I said enigma, by the way. Enigma, as in a mystery. As in how many mysteries are bound up in the man that is Rob Noerr. Man. I'm not that nervous. I feel very well prepared for this debate. And I'm actually arguing. I'm not being trapped into defending someone else's rhetoric. And to be fair, I shouldn't say trapped because that implies that Rob like tricked me or something. I volunteered for that debate. I volunteered to defend Voosh. Or at least rather the rhetoric that he was, but that was a while ago. And while I would still probably hold a similar position nowadays, I will never, fall into the mistake of defending someone's rhetoric other than my own. Oh, we have a call.
You lose me here visually.
He is departing visually.
There we go. I'm coming. There we go.
Hello.
There we go. Oh my gosh, you're really loud.
Sorry.
Sorry. No, I didn't mean that. Like, I just meant it's blowing out a little there. Let me see if I can stream no chat.
God, your camera is so much nicer than mine.
What are you working with?
I'm embarrassed. I don't want to say.
Just like your default. Dude, don't be.
It's like a Logitech cheap thing, yeah.
That's what I'm using. I'm using a Logitech Brio, but I used to use, if I'm at work streaming, I use a Logitech C920. It's not bad. I think your problem's probably majoritarily your lighting, if I had to guess.
I dwell in darkness. What can I say?
Okay, do I sound good in your end?
Yeah.
I'm gonna lower your volume a little on my end, but I assure you everyone will be able to hear you.
For
You just
sure.
sound
Yeah, all the
really loud.
No, yeah. I fucked with my mic settings for a little while, and this is what we ended up with.
It's clear. I can understand
that's
you. It was
good.
just really loud. Yeah, so it was just really loud. So yeah, feel free to record this or whatever. I'm just gonna I'll just live stream it. I'll clip it. We're live now, so I thought to start, it seems fair, if you could introduce yourself, tell people where to find you if you want and things like that. So if they like what you hear, or if they hate what you hear, they can come shake their fist at you or whatever.
I love hate watchers.
Go ahead.
Well, right now I go by the Big JC. Rob, we've actually debated once before when I went under the handle Lefty Jesus. It was a long time.
What was the topic?
A long time ago. It was about Vosh rhetoric.
You're not the guy that was No, that's not you.
No.
I remember talking to you. I do remember that.
Yeah, the apartment that I talked to you in has since burned to the ground. So, yeah.
Did everyone say?
Yeah, no, nothing like that. I just, I was talking to my partner about that earlier. I was like, I think the last time I talked to Rob, we were in the apartment. She's like, oh yeah. But anyways, now I go by the Big JC. I'm a leftist. I stream infrequently, although with my new changed work schedule, that should be updating soon. I cover politics. I cover Warhammer. That's probably what a lot of people online know me for right now, and that's sorry for confusion with the Twitter handle. But yeah, so you can find me at.
Are you just counterpoints with a wig on?
Hey, I'm not. No.
Gone full lefty.
I was gonna say this is a Counterpoint's alt account. Yeah. I'm on Twitch. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Kick. All under the Big JC. If you see a picture of Jesus Chad with red glowing eyes, you know that you've heard me.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and so I'll just explain how this came about. We were just talking on Twitter. That's basically how this came about. I thought that many left-wingers that I had streamed with before, particularly that had talked about one specific piece of evidence with Trump, that he's on tape saying that he had classified material, and that was a smoking gun, that he committed a crime. All of a sudden, they went silent when we have evidence of Joe Biden doing that. And so I'd been commenting that no one was talking about it, and to your credit, you were like, I'll come on and talk to you about it. And I had work. This was the first day that worked for us both, so here we are. That's basically the topic of conversation in general, is just, was there a double standard in the charging of Trump and not the charging of Biden? And wherever we go from, it's not like we have a moderator and an official debate topic, but that's generally what we've agreed to talk about.
As
anything you want to add?
No, I just as close to on topic as we could stay would be preferred.
Yeah, that's fine. So, let's just start with that. Are you one of the people that thought that it was a smoking gun piece of evidence when the indictment said of Trump that he had said to a journalist who didn't have a classified clearance, hey, I could have declassified this. It's secret. Basically, I shouldn't be showing you this. Did you think that was proof that he had intent to mishandle classified documents?
Yes, I think that the audio recordings, both of which I think serve as, and his actions as well, with regards to how he handled, tried to hide and even ordered people to destroy some of the classified materials that he was in possession of. I think all of these would be indicative towards his willfulness to break the law and his knowledge of the illegality of his actions.
So let's take this step by step, because we could say there are several steps that we think could be more or less likely to show willfulness or guilt when it comes to Biden or Trump. So let's say just that specifically. You said that you think that that's smoking gun evidence. So let's, for the sake of argument, say that we had nothing in the indictment about Trump concealing evidence, ordering his people to move boxes, nothing like that. The indictment just said Trump mishandled classified documents, and we have him on tape saying, basically, this is a classified document, reading it or showing it to people that didn't have a clearance. Would that be evidence enough to charge him?
Probably, yeah. Under the, as I understand the Espionage Act, yeah.
Okay. All right. Given that, why don't you think that Biden doing the same thing except worse 3 times isn't reason to charge him?
Because I don't think that you could prove willful intent with Biden, whereas we have plenty of evidence to indicate that towards Trump.
But you just said, without any of the other stuff, without any of the not cooperating, handing stuff back, this alone, just being on tape saying, this is classified stuff, I shouldn't be showing it to you, but look, it's here. You said that enough was enough to charge him. So with Biden, just in case the people don't know what the Hur Report said, it was multiple times. It was actually worse than what Trump did, because not only does he say it's probably classified, he actually skips over it sometimes when he's reading it, which shows that he knows it's classified, but then other times reads it. And then worse than that, Trump just waved papers around. Biden actually then proceeds to read on tape multiple times the classified material. So can you explain to me why, even if Trump didn't have all of these other things about not retaining information or not handing it back, you still think that that tape alone would be evidence of willfulness and of a crime, but it's not the case with Joe Biden?
Yeah, sure. So let's go through this kind of point by point here. So the first thing you said was that Biden was obviously worse. I of course disagree with this, but we can get into why specifically. A big part of when it comes to the proving a violation of the Espionage Act, if you actually get into the meat of 18 USC, it says to prove unauthorized retention of national defense information. This is actually page 178 of the Hur Report, if you want to follow along. To prove unauthorized retention of national defense information under 18 USC 793, which is what Trump was indicted under. The government must show 1, the defendant had unauthorized possession of a document, writing, or note; 2, the document, writing, or note related to the national defense; and 3, the defendant willfully retained the document, writing, or note and failed to deliver it to an employee or officer entitled to receive it. So I think that when it comes to willfulness, that's going to be really our key operative term here. If you recall from our Twitter conversation, there was someone else who was trying to cite case law precedent. I actually looked into that. So the case that they were referring to was the United States versus Bryan, which, as I understand it, had something to do with firearms permits. But essentially, what was established there is a simple standard for willfulness that's been recycled and reused many times since the case, which is just you have to prove that the individual knew that they were breaking the law. I think that with Trump, this is pretty easy. I think that saying, I shouldn't be showing you this, to a jury is pretty indicative towards his state of mind with regards to his conscious knowledge of his illegal actions. I don't think that, from what I understand, from what I've read of the Hur Report, and from what I understand of the what Biden shared and what everything like that, I don't think that there's any evidence that you could point to that he willfully gave up classified information. Simply sharing classified information is not enough to be charged under the Espionage Act. You have to show a willful intent to do so.
He admitted 3 times that it was classified or probably classified as he was reading.
Actually, if you'll recall that section of the Hur Report, there were 3 times that he read classified information, but there were multiple times he skipped over portions that he presumed classified. So, as my assessment would go, he was conscious of the fact that there was classified information present in the notebooks. This the notebook that he was reading to his ghostwriter for publishing of his 2017 memoir. He was cognizant of the knowledge, or cognizant rather, of the classified material that was present within those notebooks. So much so that he was able to say, I shouldn't be reading this part to you because I know that this is confidential. And then simply avoided doing that in the future. I would find it far more likely that, such is the case with some of the information that was on like Hillary's email server, for example, it's possible that the information wasn't classified at the time that he received it, but became retroactively classified since the time that he received it. And so proving the intentionality to break the law there is going to be the operative thing. And I think that him saying, I shouldn't be showing you this, or I shouldn't be reading this to you, and so I won't for certain passages, but omitting that in others, I think is more indicative towards him just not having a full knowledge of what he's in possession of. Whereas with Trump, we know that he was putting out maps, he was putting out battle plans and showing them to people, saying, I could have declassified this, I didn't, I shouldn't be showing you this, don't get too close, which is my personal favorite part of the indictment. I think there's plenty of evidence to show the mind state of Trump when he was knowingly, and if we get into further, because
okay, you got to give me a chance to talk at some point. I think I'm being incredibly generous here. So first off, given what you already said, that the evidence of Trump without the retention and stuff, or the not in cooperation, was enough to handle him, you already lose the debate because we clearly have evidence that that's what Biden's done.
Okay, right.
Now you're trying to parse out. Like, for example, I'll get to the exact quotes, but there's an exact quote in the last section where it's talking about why they're not charging Biden with reading to the ghostwriter, where it says basically this. On the last time, Biden was like, oh, this is probably classified. But then he didn't just read it, he showed it. He said to the person it's probably classified, then physically showed it to the writer. Now, he did this several times. What you're saying actually, to me, makes the situation worse, because here's what happened. Biden can't claim ignorance that he didn't know that there was classified material in the notebook, because if at times he specifically skipped over what he thought to be classified, that would prove that he knew there was classified material in the notebook. When he later says, this is probably classified, and then reads it anyways to the writer, he can't claim, I didn't know it was classified. That's evidence. Now, think about this. Let's say that I have a 50-page notebook, right? And I know that on 30 of the pages, there's classified material. I know it. But I'm still chancing it by reading stuff, and I end up reading classified stuff. The idea that I didn't intended that is absurd. The document itself is a classified document by the nature that it has classified material within it. Now, you're right that the Bryan standard separates and says that we only need simple willfulness is what it qualifies as, because the argument will be that when you're reading verbally, you need to go more than simple willfulness. Simple willfulness basically just means you knew you weren't supposed to do it. You knew it were against the law to have the classified documents. There is a separate standard that you also had to know that the information could be damaging to U.S. national security. Simple willfulness says you don't need that standard.
Correct.
You don't. So the question is, did Biden know that this stuff was classified? Yes. He knew that it was classified. He knew the stuff in the notebook was classified, as he admits multiple times. At one point, he even says it's probably classified, then does literally what you said proves Trump's guilt, literally shows it to his ghostwriter. So given that passage, if that's true, he said that this is probably classified, and then he physically shows it to his ghostwriter, how isn't that doing exactly what you're accusing Trump of doing?
So as I just said, as I understand it, there was nothing to indicate that he said, this is classified, I shouldn't show you this, and then proceeded to show them. As I understood it, he skipped over sections he knew were classified and then shared classified information.
Okay, so you want me to find the exact quote?
Please.
This is what you need? Okay, let me find it. I don't have this saved. My damn mouse frustrates me to no end. So let's go to the part where document's killing me. You acknowledge that he knew material within it was classified.
Of course. And I will also concede to you immediately that regardless of the willfulness standard that's being applied here, I think that both individuals and many individuals in our government have been highly negligent with their handling of classified materials. And regardless of whether or not Biden is criminally liable for the way that he negligently handled those materials, I think that those procedures regarding what documents are allowed to be taken out of where should probably be addressed very soon in order to prevent any of this kind of thing from happening again.
I do not give a shit about that at all. My entire contention is that this is a clear double standard, and this is
Okay.
this is an argument that I see people on the left make to appear magnanimous all the time, right? Which is what they'll say. They'll say, "Oh, maybe charge both of them," or "Yeah, technically, what both
Well, I
them
don't
are
think
wrong."
both should be
They're
charged.
literally they're trying to interfere in the election. So, for example, the Smith case is going out of its. Would you agree with this? This is sort of outside the scope of what we agreed to talk about. But Smith's doing everything possible to rush this case before the election, correct?
I'm not familiar with the Smith case.
Well, the Smith case is the indictment of Trump that we're talking about.
I'm sorry. Okay.
The classified
Jack
documents
Smith.
case.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, that you would agree that they're constantly filing motions trying to get this case
I'm
as
pretty
fast
sure
as
it
possible.
just got
because-
delayed, right, until after the election.
Well, right, and no, that's not true. There are things that got delayed, but Smith's not happy about it and keeps filing
Well,
motions.
right, but did it get
And basically
delayed?
Even,
Is it present? Is it
There were
presently
thi-
delayed? That's what I'm asking.
you said it got delayed till after the election. I'm unaware that
Oh,
that's the
okay,
case. In fact,
sure.
I know that's
Okay,
not the
sure.
case. Right? There was what Trump's doing is he's taking things to the Supreme Court. Like, for example, one of his defenses is, as president, I had immunity from any of these sorts of crimes. Right? I have criminal immunity, not just civil immunity, that would apply once I leave office as well. Right? And Jack Smith's arguing that's not the case. This is something that's going to be brought in front of the Supreme Court. And so that's going to cause a delay, because the question is, can we even proceed to a trial? Jack Smith is going out of his way to try to make sure that this is adjudicated before the election. Do you agree with that?
Didn't they just rule that Trump doesn't have presidential immunity and can be? This was with regards to plotting to overturn the 2020 election, so it's not quite the same. But didn't they just rule that he
Right, but
doesn't have presidential immunity in that regard? And he
What
wasn't.
was
He
ruled
wasn't
was-
president when he committed the crimes that he was indicted for either.
It was a lower court case, right? But the question is, will it be brought to the Supreme Court, and will that cause some sort of delay? Jack Smith over and over has been filing motions attempting to expedite the speed of this trial in ways that he hasn't done with any other January 6th defendant or anyone else. Would you agree that he is attempting, the evidence shows strongly that he's attempting to get this case tried before the election?
It's possible, and I could understand why, but I don't know how you could prove that.
Well, it's against DOJ policy, and basically everyone who's looking at this understands it. In fact, the most recent Jack Smith filing cited specifically said that we need it's for the interest of the American people to have a speedy trial.
I don't think it's against DOJ policy to attempt to remove a undemocratic actor from the election process.
Now, that's not what's against DOJ policy is allowing politics in any way, shape, or form to influence your decisions on indictments and how you proceed with the case. Right. In other words, the DOJ or any other, the FBI and all these institutions, they're not allowed to factor in politics when they're deciding on how to proceed with charges and how to proceed with the criminal case. They can't do that. That's expressly written. And Jack Smith is saying, oh, no, it's in the interest of the American people. We have to do this as fast as possible. But that's not what the idea of a speedy trial is. The idea of the speedy trial is for the defendant. The defendant has the right to a speedy trial. Our entire system's set up to give the benefit of the doubt unto the defendant, innocent until proven guilty. So the defendant has a bunch of rights, like the right to look at evidence that's going to be used against them. Jack Smith keeps fighting that. The right to adhere any sort of defense and any sort of objections to the trial that could reasonably be heard. As a former president, there's clearly things, and this is an unprecedented case, that he's going to bring up that's going to require being heard in courts. But Jack Smith continually says, no. We have to rush through this. And the reason is for politics. So the idea...
Hold on, because your initial claim was that Jack Smith is trying to expedite this ahead of the election, and now you're saying that he's trying to rush through it. I think those are two distinct things. Correct. I think that if you believe that someone like Trump, who has made multiple anti-democratic statements and has put national secrets directly at risk, I think that all of these factors combined, not only that, but tried to take advantage of a riot on January 6th and turn it into an insurrection. I think that when all of these things are combined, I would understand the motivation to want to make sure that, especially if this person is slated to be the Republican candidate for 2024, you want to make sure that they're at least cleared of all criminal charges, right? When you want to, if you don't think Trump is guilty, why wouldn't you want to take it to court and get him exonerated as quickly as possible?
Are you innocent? So if you're accused of crimes, you should be charged and immediately, like the next day, go to court because you're innocent? It's okay if they spy on you and stuff? This is stupid. This is an authoritarian argument. The argument that, well, if you really think that you're innocent, then you shouldn't mind. You should want a court case.
He's
That's
already been
nonsensical.
indicted.
What you just said, please, but what you said, it kind of shows the game here. My entire argument is that there's a double standard. Now, you might argue that the double standard is good because Jack Smith thinks that what Trump did is a danger to the republic and blah, blah, blah. That's fine. You can
I
think that.
contest the existence of the double standard to begin with. I was actually about to ask you if you could elucidate on that.
If you let me
me.
speak,
Sure.
I'll get to it. Like, so you've already said, so the fact that you're basically saying, well, if Trump's innocent, we should. It's in his interest. And because the implications are he tried to overthrow the government in this insurrection, all that, the American people, right? That's what you're saying. The American people before the election should hear. That's what you're saying, right?
I think that if the indictment is correct in its pursuance of justice, I think that yes, it should. I think the case should be heard as soon as possible. I don't understand why you would want someone who has felony convictions hanging in the air to be elected president of the United States, regardless of party.
Nonetheless, all of that is counter to the idea of your wants and Jack Smith's wants, and you thinking that this is real important for politics is irrelevant and actually unlawful for someone like Jack Smith to do. Jack Smith, like all prosecutors, like all judges, like all law enforcement, also are held to certain standards. They do not get to violate those procedures because they truly believe what they're doing is important.
Didn't you say this was
My
unprecedented?
argument is, please let me finish. My argument is that this shows is what you're suggesting right now is further proof of the double standard. So they're not allowing Trump to have the normal procedures that a normal defendant would have, which is guaranteed in our Constitution. Instead, they're saying we need to rush this along. Hurry up and expedite this because we have political matters that we think are important, which they're not allowed to do. Jack Smith's mindset is one of that of he truly believes Trump's a danger to the society and he's going to come hell or high water, bring these charges and try to keep Trump from being elected. That's the whole point. That's what he's doing, as you've basically just admitted. That's different than what happens when we're looking at people like Hillary Clinton, when we're looking at people like Joe Biden. Instead, what happens is when they do analogous things like also reading classified material to a writer, what we're told is, oh, but he's an old man. It's just an innocent mistake. This doesn't show willfulness. See, they lay out the defense for Joe Biden. This whole document's rife with that. They're like, well, technically, he obviously willfully retained this information, which technically meets the metrics of a crime. But people like him. He seems just like a doddering old man with memory issues. And then with Trump, he's a threat to democracy. Not only are we bringing charges, but we'll violate our own procedures by making sure to expedite it for political reasons as quick as possible. And you can respond, and then I'll read you the section from the page.
Sure. So, as I want to get to eventually what you actually think the double standard is, because from my perspective, these cases are so incomparable outside of the retention of classified materials that trying to imply some sort of double standard is completely disingenuous. For one, Biden, Hillary, and even Mike Pence, when it came to their retention of classified materials, all cooperated with NARA when it came to...
Irrelevant. It's irrelevant.
No, it's quite relevant. Hold on. No, I'm not going to let you interject because it's actually quite relevant. When we're talking about willfulness, which is what you need to establish in order to criminally indict someone, you need to have evidence towards that, and little evidence towards the contrary. I would say that cooperating willingly with the National Records Administration and returning your documents with a fuss without them having to harass you for half a year, without them finally having to send in the FBI to raid your property to get back documents they know you still have, I would say that not doing any of those things would actually indicate that you were not willfully breaking the law.
Okay, so first off, you already gave the game away with the very first question I asked, that you said even had Trump returned these documents and he not been charged with it, you still think that the audio recording is enough to charge him. So now you're switching your standard. You're saying, oh, but the fact that Trump didn't hand back this stuff, but Biden did. So you've already moved the goalpost.
Well, the recording that you gave me as a specific example where he said, I'm not supposed to have this, I think would indicate a willfulness when it comes to retaining the document, which is part of what USC 890 or 793 or 18.
That's great. that's great. So then that has nothing to do. So let's look at that in a vacuum. You think that's enough based on what he said on tape? That's enough. So the idea of voluntarily giving stuff back is irrelevant to whether or not you think charges should be levied. Let's read from. We'll start on page 244.
Hold on.
We'll go a couple
Please do not strawman me. Actually, as I've articulated twice now, the will to cooperate with the returning of the documents or the non-willingness to return those documents would be a contention point as to whether or not someone was intentionally breaking the law when it comes to establishing it to a jury.
So let's clear it up. So your argument would be you're standing by your initial statement that had Trump voluntarily given
that was
the stuff
not my
back
initial
not
statement. That's not how you set it up.
Okay, so then your statement is if he just wasn't charged with the obstruction.
My state.
This tape alone would be enough to convict him.
Let me steel man it for you. If Trump had immediately after leaving office, if he had boxes or whatever, and he vaguely knew there were classified things in there, and he started going through them, and he found these classified, like, I don't know, a map that would indicated a plan of attack for a certain country. And then the second he saw that, he went, oh, crap, I'm not supposed to have this, contacted NARA and had it returned to them immediately. No, I don't think he should be indicted. Okay,
so then you were erroneous when you first said that whether or not he gave the material back, that it was enough to indict him just from that. You're now saying that tape wouldn't have been enough to indict if after he did that tape, he said, oh shit, I should give these documents back.
It depends on the time frame. I think if it's the next day, then sure. But I think
fine.
I think a period of.
Let's go with that. Fine, we'll go with that. And so now let's read a little. You can follow along. We're on page 244, the last paragraph.
Just give me a second to catch up. My PDF.
We're gonna read a couple pages.
You said 244. Yeah, I have to manually scroll here.
Oh, so it'll be 248 on. If you're on the same document as me, because you know it.
You have the page number 2. All right. No, I'm almost there. You're good.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It starts with section C. The evidence does not prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Right? Got it?
Yes.
Okay. You see where it says at 3 times?
The evidence does not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Biden willfully disclosed national defense information.
Keep going down the paragraph. At least 3 times. You see it?
Biden read the first 2 incidents
involved.
Okay,
let me read. Ready?
Hold on. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Read it.
I'm going to read this. Okay, thank you. At least 3 times, Mr. Biden read classified notes from national security meetings to Zwanzer, that's his ghostwriter, nearly verbatim. Now, brief pause. Trump never read the classified material he's accused of having.
No, he just physically showed it to people so they could get a good look at it.
Yeah, he waved it in the air. They didn't get to read the words.
No, he didn't wave it in the air. He was showing it to people.
That's not true. The indictment doesn't say that he brought it up close and they were looking at it. He showed. Go ahead, show me where in the indictment says it.
I don't think that it specifically says he shoved it in all of their faces. Right. But to you, is that either he directly shoved it in their faces, or it's he waved it off in a distance so nobody could actually make out what was on it? He was telling during the phone call, during the recording, he was telling people, look at this, look at this.
Look at this. You see this? That's classified. It probably shouldn't show. That's secret. That's what it looked like he did. He didn't read from it. They couldn't read the letters on it, read the words. That's what I'm saying. There's no accusation that they read the material that was on the class.
But they don't have to. You understand? They don't have to read it for him to be indicted on a violation of the Espionage Act.
I understand the point I'm making. If we're comparing the two, Joe Biden not only showed by having the documents similar to Trump that were classified right in front of the writer, but then he proceeded to read verbatim the classified material.
Where does it say that he showed it to him? Because you've said that several times.
We'll get to it. You ready? Well, first off, unless you think that Biden was like this reading it.
I mean, for all I know, as I understand it, these conversations were recorded. For all I know, this could have been over the phone.
No, it was in person. Now, we'll get to it. Ready? I'm going to keep reading. The first 2 incidents involved the same notebook passage. On February 16, 2017, remember that date, 2017. Just keep that in the back of your mind, right? For something you said earlier. Mr. Biden appeared to explain to Zwanzer that a notebook entry related to a long meeting on the Security Council was probably classified. Then he reads it. Let me repeat that. You said he didn't say that it was classified. Let me repeat that. Mr. Biden appeared to explain to Zwanzer that a notebook entry related to the long meeting on the Security Council was probably classified. Now, brief pause here. You just said the reason that Trump was guilty was because he said, I know this is classified, I shouldn't be reading it. But you said Biden didn't say that. That's a lie. Biden didn't say
I said that the reason that Trump was indicted, the reason that they actually sought charges against Trump and didn't against Biden is because they were able to build a much better case on Trump's willfulness to break the law, which just, hold on, constituted a lot more than just the one incident where he showed classified information. It was also the months-long, slog that Nara tried to go through, finally sending in the fucking FBI to bust down the doors of Mar-a-Lago and get back their shit. There's a lot more that goes into like establishing this willful retention of documents than simply he showed people a map one time and said I shouldn't have this. That was a part of it, certainly, but there's a much larger case here.
Okay, so now can everyone see what happens? Let me explain what my opponent's done here. So I strategically started off the conversation talking about things in a vacuum, right? Because one of the things that had occurred over and over with these lefties, they said the mere fact that Trump was on tape saying this proof, smoking gun, that he committed a crime. So that's when I asked my opponent. He said, yes, that in its own right, even without the idea of whether or not he handed back documents or not, that would be enough to charge him. I say, okay, that's what Biden did. He said Biden never said the material was classified, so that's different. Now we see that Biden did say the material was classified. Then he tries to wiggle out of it. He says, but yes, there's a bunch of other things. Now there are all these other things. So his initial statement of this action alone by Trump was enough to charge. Now that we see that Biden committed this action, he does what these people that defend the double standards always do. They say, but these two situations aren't directly analogous. There's other differences, and now that's what we're going to talk about. One of the reasons, no, wait, I'm gonna even go further in proving how ridiculous. You just said in your clarification, so now you clarified, and you said, actually, had Trump given the documents back after he made this comment, it maybe would have meant he didn't get charged, but it depended on the timetable. That's what you said, right?
Rob, I don't appreciate you're trying to rhetorically corner me and nail me on very off. I think if you examine both of these, if we could have a good faith discussion about the details of both the indictment and the report, I think it's pretty obvious what the conclusions that should be drawn are.
Okay, now I'll ask you again. You said that one of the reasons that Trump maybe wouldn't have been charged after this tape if he returned the documents within a reasonable time.
Hold on, we should preface all of this, by the way, by saying I'm not a legal expert and neither are you. I'm a layperson. So I'm giving my own conjecture from my minimal understanding of the legal system. So if I give an incorrect answer,
I'll ask the question again. I'll ask the question a third time. You said that it would have been a crime if Trump said this on tape unless he gave the material back in a reasonable time frame. That would imply if he didn't give it back in a reasonable time frame, he could still be charged, correct?
No.
So then why did you make the caveat of reasonable time frame?
Because I found it ridiculous that you were trying to pigeonhole me into one specific point when you are well aware that the Trump indictment consists of many more pieces of evidence that constitute his willfulness to obstruct and retain those documents.
So my opponent's being bad faith.
I am not being bad faith. How dare you?
Please.
How dare you? And I'll explain why. That's very rich.
If you're not being so you're not being bad faith. No. So your explanation for why you just said. If you want me to explain,
let me explain. Don't explain to me what I said. Let me actually articulate my thoughts.
I just let you explain. And so I'm going to re-ask the question because your explanation literally makes zero sense. You initially say the tape of Trump saying this is reason enough to charge him. Then when I say Biden said this too, then you change your stance. You're like, well, actually, there's more to it than that.
Biden didn't say that, by the way.
For example, you did. You said, for example, had Trump given the stuff back, then maybe he wouldn't have been charged. And I said, so if he gave it back, he wouldn't have been charged. You said, well, if it was within a reasonable time frame. Now, why didn't you just say, sure, if he gave it back at any point, then there wouldn't have been charges? Instead, you put that caveat of reasonable time frame because what you were trying, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going to Steelman, what you were trying to say is, obviously, he couldn't hold on to the documents for 4 years and then say, and shit, you could have this back.
He shouldn't have had them after he left office, period. Neither should Biden, which I already conceded to you. The difference being that Trump continued to withhold the documents, ordered people to move them, ordered some people to destroy some of those boxes, whereas Biden and the author immediately after the investigation was open collaborated with every step of the special counsel, cooperated with every request, every subpoena that they issued. Mm-hmm. So all
of that is completely irrelevant to what we're talking about right now. Now, it is what is happening is you're floundering. You realize what you said is literally the justification for charging Joe Biden, and so now you're just floundering. But Joe Biden did all this other stuff. That's what you're doing because here's the end point. When he said as long as you return it to a reasonable time frame, hey, is 7 years a reasonable time frame? Because that's how long it took Joe Biden to return his classified material.
Would you mind if I read from the special counsel report?
No, you could read to it when we proceed to the section that you're going to want to move to a different section. My entire argument is that the evidence that was outlined belies the opinion of her that charges shouldn't have been dropped.
If that was the case,
my argument is that there is a double standard, that the evidence that was outlined for Trump that justified the charges, and then we're looking at the part in the document from her that outlines the actual evidence of what happened. You're then going to read from her's opinion that says, despite that evidence, here's why we didn't bring charges.
No,
that's why
that's
I'm asking you
read.
your opinion. That's why I'm asking you your opinion. What was the basis? Remember, this entire conversation started because I was having a discussion with people on Twitter about how all of these streamers that I debated this on with the Trump Mar-a-Lago case said the mere fact that he was on tape and said he shouldn't have had this classified information.
You tried to straw man me into that at the beginning of the discussion. I've been very clear throughout this entire thing that what constitutes to a jury a willfulness to retain those documents would be all of Trump's actions taken in consideration. No jury has ever looked at one specific fact and gone, that's enough, that's all I need to see. Otherwise, if that was the standard that we were going off of, Biden probably would have been indicted.
Okay, so what you can see constantly, this is what happens. Every time I have these discussions of is there a double standard of the way law enforcement happens, you have to get people to give their standards of what justifies charges and things like that.
That's how the legal system works,
Because what happens is, what they'll always do is post hoc justification. For example, here's an example that maybe you can understand, JC, right? When I talk to people about why there was an opening of the Trump-Russia collusion investigation, and we started to realize that there was a bunch of things the FBI did that was illegal or corrupt, such as using unverified opposition research to spy on the president, what I was told by intelligent lefties was this: because the accusations against Trump were so severe, okay, you had to break a few eggs to make an omelet, but we had to investigate.
That's not me, though.
Because the accusations.
Could you could have a conversation with me instead of alluding to? Well, right. I don't see what the relevance is bringing up prior discussions that you have instead of having a discussion right now, right here with me.
The relevance is to explain the behavior that you're engaging in, right? Because let me finish. So what happened was I said, okay, can you outline exactly what that scenario is that justified the FBI doing this? And what this person told me was, because Trump's team had so many shady connections to Russians, therefore the FBI is justified in doing this. Then I was able to outline about 14 shady connections from Hillary's team with Russians, including some of the same ones. You know what they said? That's different. There were slight different things. That's exactly what you're doing here, right? So when I ask you, I say, let's start at the beginning. Is there a smoking gun that itself, without any of the other evidence, was enough to charge Trump? You say yes. He was on tape. So you say, I didn't say that. You're right, you didn't say that on Twitter, but that's what you said here initially. And I knew I had you right then because that's my entire argument. Biden did enough to violate the statute of the crime. The argument that lefties are going to try to make is, but he cooperated, so who cares if he broke the law? That's not how things work. If it was reason enough to charge Trump in a vacuum, just that section of it, then it would be reason enough to charge Biden. I'll finish by saying this. When you said, if you hand back the documents in a reasonable time frame, Joe Biden took over 7 years. Joe Biden didn't cooperate. Joe Biden weaponized his DOJ to go after Trump and then realized, oh shit, I committed the same crime I accused Trump of. It'd be like this. Let's say me and you are in town as teenagers and we steal beer from a local convenience store. We do it every weekend. I talk up the old clerk and you slightly steal the beer and then we go watch hockey and fucking pound beers together.
Come on.
How old
I'm
are
a
you?
homeowner. I'm 24.
I'm 39, so fine.
Oh God! If we have to steal beer, oh my God! Then the state of the country has fallen. I'll give you that one there.
You must have grew up more privileged than me. Anyways, let's say that's the case, right? And then
you had to steal beer in your 30s. Oh, Rob, I'll send you beer money.
I said assume we're teenagers. Jesus. And no, I didn't steal beer, but I'm just
neither did I.
So assume we're teenagers. We're 18, and we steal all this beer, and we steal posters and shit from the store, whatever, right? And then I run for mayor and I win. And then you challenge me because you're like, Rob's a fucking shithead conservative, and I'm a progressive. I'm going to beat Rob for mayor of this town.
You have a lower opinion of me than I wish.
I announce that my chief of police is now arresting you for stealing beer and posters from this store, right? And so you're under arrest. You're my opponent, but you're under arrest. I direct my police to arrest you. And then I say, oh, and by the way, I also stole beer from the store, but I'm giving it back now.
That's completely disanalogous, considering that Biden did return the documents.
That's exactly what happened. Biden got caught with the
you said you read this, right? You said you read the Hur Report. Did you read? Yep. So if we go to pages 10 and 11, you read those, right?
I did. I've read the entire.
Do you mind if I read a quick excerpt from? It's the.
You can. Yeah. I'm going to get back to reading the section
yeah, sure,
that I wanted.
So,
but if you need to interject and read an excerpt
I actually
where
think
you're
this
going,
is really important.
I know it. You're going to say the differences between Trump's investigation and this guy.
Yeah. Hur actually specifically outlines. He mentions Trump. With one exception, there is no record of the Department of Justice prosecuting former president or vice president for mishandling classified documents from his own administration. The exception is former President Trump. It is not our role to assess the criminal charges pending against Mr. Trump, but several material distinctions between Mr. Trump's case and Mr. Biden's are clear. Unlike the evidence involving Mr. Biden, the allegations set forth in the indictment of Mr. Trump, if proven, would present serious aggravating facts. Most notably, after being given multiple chances to return classified documents and avoid prosecution, Mr. Trump allegedly did the opposite. According to the indictment, he not only refused to return the documents for many months, but also obstructed justice by enlisting others to destroy evidence and then to lie about it. In contrast, Mr. Biden turned in classified documents to the National Archives and the Department of Justice, consented to the search of multiple locations, including his homes, sat for a voluntary interview, and in other ways cooperated with the investigation. So, what is the double standard here?
Let me ask you a couple questions here. One, does the fact that Trump did something worse prove Biden didn't commit a crime?
No, of course not.
Is there a separate standard for a separate statute of the law for refusing to hand over material when it's requested?
It's so I don't like the conflation here where we go Biden had the possession of documents immediately to refusing to return. I think that if you want to, like, again, it also goes back to proving intent, which is a key part of our justice system. What does any of this have to do with the question I just asked you? I'm trying to answer your question, Rob. I'm trying to answer your question.
Okay, it seems like you're deflecting.
So if you're going to prove intent when it comes in a criminal matter, you probably want to use evidence towards that. So like refusal would be something that would require intent. So I haven't seen any evidence to indicate Biden.
That's not true.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So you're saying, whoa. That is unless I'm mishearing you, that is an absolute falsehood. What you just said is that in order to require intent, you would need refusal.
In order to refuse something, you have to have the intent to do something. Correct?
Not necessarily.
Well, okay. So what are the cases where you can refuse something but not intend to?
Well, for example, you could refuse something and intend to refuse, but that doesn't necessarily mean you intended to violate the law. It's my
understanding that refusal inherently carries the knowledge that you are intending to not do something. It is refusing is a conscious action to not do something.
I just said that you're arguing something that I never argued. Yes, a refusal is intent. For example, is having a private server in your bathroom, is that intent?
I don't see what relevance that has to this, no.
Well, that would be intent, right? But she wasn't charged with a crime because
they
said even though she intended to have the private server, that doesn't prove she intended to commit the crime.
To hand it over, unlike Trump refused to hand his documents over.
Right. I understand what you're doing. You're trying to conflate two separate things.
I'm trying to follow the legal standards for prosecution.
What I'm saying is, you just asked me, does refusal require intent? Well, yes. To refuse something, you had to intend to refuse it, but that doesn't mean you intended to break the law. Just like have a server in your bathroom,
that's not what I said. Yep. That's correct. I wasn't trying to thread those two. See, I know that everything can get jumbled when you've got all these talking points memorized. I'm going point by point. So
it has nothing to do with talking points. It's that I can see that you're the person with talking points that you say something and then you immediately understand that something proves that there's a double standard, and so you change what you said.
I don't believe there's a double standard. You're the one who has the burden of proof in that regard. You need to demonstrate the double standard to me.
So I'm going to keep going. Here's another question. Did Hur have access to the evidence in the Trump case? Yes or no?
It wasn't his case.
Right. So when he's saying this is what's different about this case, he
even
doesn't really know
says it's not our role to assess the criminal charges, but also the indictment was made public. I'm sure he's read it, as have many other people. He works in the Department of Justice.
Two more questions on this. Did Hur go out of his way, despite outlining that there was willful retention of classified information, which is the metric for a crime? So the standard for committing the crime was there. But he said the reason he wasn't charging it was because he foresaw what the defense would be and that some jurors might buy the defense.
What he said was that he didn't think that he could establish a case of willfulness. He didn't think there was enough evidence to do so to a jury, which I would agree with.
So he came up with plausible scenarios, including basically Joe Biden
You know,
has
Hur's a
dementia.
conservative. I'm not sure what his ideological motivation is to shield a Democrat.
Okay, we could get to his motivations later. So you'll admit that that's what he did. He sat down on every one of these possible charges. He sat down and thought, what will the defense be? And will that defense be persuasive to...
I mean, yeah, because that's what you would.
Okay.
That's what you would do when hold on. When you are trying to determine whether or not you should indict someone with a crime, you do need to assess whether the evidence you have available is sufficient to indict them. Which is why Trump was indicted and why Biden wasn't.
Last question on it. Did Hur do the same with Trump?
Hur wasn't involved in the Trump investigation, was he?
Did Hur, please, when Hur's saying this is different from Trump's case, did Hur sit down and say, maybe Trump will say, and a jury will believe that as president, I thought that everything I had was automatically declassified. Therefore, we're not going to charge.
I believe Hur was only commenting on the indictment as the only precedential case when it comes to retaining classified documents from a former administration. The only reason he brought it up in his intro is there's literally only one fucking time this has happened in history, and it's been Trump.
Right. There's a lot of that occurs. The only time that FISA warrants have been used to spy on a presidential campaign is Trump. That was unlawful. Nonetheless, so let's talk about what you just admitted to here. We'll talk about what you just admitted to here. First, even though you didn't answer the question, yes, there is a specific standard. I believe it's standard F under U.S. 18, whatever it is, that Trump's being charged with. He's charged under E, and that's what they were looking at charging Biden under. But Hur goes into the report other possible charges, and one of those charges, I think it's F, which is not handing over evidence or material that's asked for.
Right.
That's a separate charge. It's nice that you say right now, because previously you rambled on and didn't answer. I said, is there a separate charge? The implication to that would be this. Cooperation is the norm. Right?
Yeah.
The mere fact that there is a separate standard, the mere fact that there is a separate standard for, okay, we're asking for this stuff, and if you don't hand it over, it's a crime, proves that it is not sufficient to say a crime wasn't committed because after you got caught committing the crime, you handed the material over. If your argument wants to be, and we could have that debate too, that Trump obstructed and Biden didn't, fine. Then you either drop the charges against Trump for the mishandling of classified information, or you charge Biden as well. But to say Biden cooperated, which is bullshit, as I've already explained, he didn't cooperate. He knew that he had this material since 2017, only handing it over once he's weaponized his Justice Department in an unprecedented way to go after Trump so he could say, oh, I can't be charged because I handed it over, is bullshit. Cooperating would have been when you saw the material, you handed it over. Not that you kept it in your garage with your crackhead son that was probably going through it to help with his foreign lobbying business that he wasn't charged through. That's not cooperation. And even if you do think that he cooperated, it still doesn't change the fact that the letter of the law is that it says if you willfully retained, simple willfulness, if you knew it was classified and you weren't allowed to have it, which clearly Joe Biden did, and not only that, he then read that material that he knew was classified, that's a charge. Later saying, oh shit, 8 years later I got caught, so now I'm handing it over. Bullshit.
So simple willfulness is a standard that requires knowledge that you need to prove they knew they were breaking the law. Do you think that applies to Joe Biden?
Did Joe Biden know he wasn't? Yes, I think Joe Biden knew he can't read classified
material.
You
understand that just having classified material and even sharing it isn't in and of itself a crime, unfortunately.
No, it is. The actual act of sharing classified material to someone who doesn't have a classification level and knowing that it's classified is a crime.
So let me ask you a question. No. Let me ask you a question. You're assigning a lot of age.
Finish reading. I would like to finish. So let's finish reading. I just want to read two or three paragraphs here. We'll reread the ones we did. Remember, JC said the difference was Joe Biden didn't know his stuff was classified. He never said it was classified. Let's read again. At least 3 times, Mr. Biden read classified notes from national security meetings to Swansor's team, nearly verbatim. The first 2 incidents involved the same notebook passage. On February 16, 2017, Mr. Biden appeared to explain to Swanson that a notebook entry related to a long meeting on the Security Council was probably classified. And yet he read it. That's a crime, yes? If you say this is classified material and then read it to someone that you know doesn't have a clearance, Joe Biden knew that was a crime and he did it.
What was the page number for that again? Sorry.
Well, do you want the page number at top or on the bottom?
The real page number, the PDF one.
249 out of 388. Right? Now, I'm going to read the second paragraph, which is even worse, which is the last paragraph, or the second to last paragraph here. There is also, let me see. The third incident, this is on page 250, the bottom of the page. The third incident happened April 24th, 2017, when Mr. Biden read aloud to Zwanitzer portions of a different entry of classified notes from a National Security Council meeting, also nearly verbatim. When Biden could not read a particular entry, he showed, remember you asked me for evidence that he physically showed? He showed the entry to Zwanitzer, but warned him. Some of this may be classified, so be careful, I'm not sure. It isn't marked classified, but Biden nonetheless continued to read aloud verbatim portions of the same passage. Mr. Biden's decision to read notes nearly verbatim to Zwanitzer that Biden had just identified as potentially classified cannot be justified. And here's their explanation why they're not going to charge. You ready? But the evidence does not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he intended to share classified information. He said he wasn't sure. Well, that's belied by the fact that he skipped over the passages previously because he thought they were classified. And saying they're probably classified, I'm not sure.
Hold on. If he skipped over the pages that he thought were classified, but then didn't, to me, what that indicates more is that he's just a confused old man, which is kind of what I wanted to ask you about. How much agency are you assigning to Biden here?
Let me finish. We'll get to that's right. You're right. That's the defense. He's the confused old man. That's the defense they give.
Reality. I've seen him on television.
Let's keep going. There's also evidence Biden took steps to avoid sharing information. As explained in Chapter 5, Biden sometimes skipped over passages. And if called as a witness at trial, Zwanitzer would testify that Biden mentioned the need to be careful because he was worried about the possibility that stuff could be classified. And that there were things he couldn't tell me because lines would be crossed. Given the intelligence and military officials present and the top secrets discussed at the meeting with Zwanitzer, Biden should have realized his notes did or were likely to contain classified information. No shit, he said they were probably classified. But taken as a whole, the evidence will likely leave jurors with reasonable doubts whether Biden knew sharing the classified information and intended to. For these jurors, Biden's lapses and failures in February and April will likely appear consistent with diminished faculties and faulty memory he showed in Zwanitzer's recordings of him. Therefore, we conclude the evidence is literally on this passage specifically. The only reason they cite that they're not charging him is Biden has dementia.
Yeah.
You're okay with that?
If that's the reason that he was acting all confused, sure. I don't think you should charge people with dementia of crimes just because they didn't know what they were doing or where they were.
So I just want to be clear. Are you voting for Joe Biden? Just curious.
Unfortunately, if he's the Democratic candidate.
So the argument that the Democrats and you yourself seem to be supporting is this. Joe Biden has enough dementia that we can't charge him with any crimes that require intent because he's confused and doesn't know what he's doing. But he has just little enough dementia that we could trust him with the nuclear codes and to be president for another 4 years.
Just to be clear, I believe that there's nothing that literally prevents them from charging him. There's nothing that prevented this from being an indictment other than Hur's opinion that the evidence wasn't sufficient to convince a jury. He just didn't want to gamble on it.
It's bullshit. It clearly shows a double standard because you could be, like, for example, do you think Trump has diminished faculties?
Yeah, actually I do. I think they both do.
So then you think any crime that he committed that required intent should be revoked?
So if when Biden was reading this to Zwanitzer, if he said, I shouldn't be reading this to you, but here it is, rather than what he actually said, which is, this may be classified, I'm not sure, it is marked classified, so maybe it's fine, as opposed to Trump overtly saying, I should not be showing this to you, I could have declassified this, don't get too close. I think those are remarkably different statements.
Well, you can, but if they both have dementia, what's the difference? Trump was confused when he said that.
The difference is whether or not you're able to convince a jury.
So what? But you could. I've seen tons of evidence.
And when I said that Trump has diminished faculties, I should have clarified. That's my fault. When I was being more specific to over the past year or so, when he's been faced with all of these indictments and all of this legal bullshit that he's sort of embroiled in, dude looks like he's slipping. And I've been asked directly by people, my friends, etc., who's gonna go first, and I think Trump has a stroke before Biden slips and falls, to be honest. He's under a tremendous amount of legal stress.
When was he slipping? 2022?
So I said a little over a year ago, so yeah.
But in 2021, he had his faculties.
Well, he wasn't embroiled in all the legal trouble, which is what I said contributed to a lot of his loss of mental, or what I would. And again, this is all layman's perspective, right? Neither of us are psychologists. I'm just making an assessment based on the clip that I've seen.
Is Hur a psychologist?
No, but I would imagine that there were opinions consulted when he wrote the special counsel report.
So that, just to be clear, you reject the Democrats that have been criticizing Hur for talking about his diminished mental faculties. You agree Biden has diminished mental
keep in mind,
faculties,
I'm a Democrat by voting like necessity, not by preference. I'm a leftist.
Okay,
I'm not really no, it's very relevant. I don't like either of them, unfortunately, but I would rather have Biden in office than Trump.
You don't like either of them in the same way that 99.9% of people that I debate on this subject of a two-tiered system do. You hate Trump, right?
Probably, yeah. He's kind of an idiot.
Yeah, and so
kind
here's the
Biden
deal.
Too.
You might not like.
I'm a leftist. Keep in mind, he's been fucking up Palestine royally.
You might not like Biden. You might not like Hillary,
Palestine.
but you're okay with the weaponization of an FBI that goes after Trump because Orange Man bad. Yeah, you are.
Okay.
Can you show me? Okay, cool.
No.
Okay.
Well, I guess if you can just say it, then yeah, sure. What other positions do you want to describe to me, Rob?
Okay, cool. So you could show me. Do you
what
comment on politics a lot?
What else do I believe? Tell me.
I'm asking you a question. Do you comment on politics on places like social media a lot? Okay. Can you show me where you've commented about the illegal spying on Trump's team of FISA warrants that were paid for by Hillary Clinton's campaign?
Can I comment on a very, very specific talking point from like 2017, 2016? No, I can't. I wasn't politically active back then.
We're talking about an unprecedented...
Rob, I'm only 24. I wasn't politically active back then.
More evidence comes out about it every day. We've heard about this in 2020. Kevin Kleinsmith was charged with a crime in... The Durham report just came out in 2022 that went over all this. Surely you commented on the Durham report.
Probably not. I'm not as obsessed in dick riding for Trump as you seem to be, no.
Well, it has nothing to do with dick riding with Trump. The actual truth is you are more obsessed with Trump. I don't really give a shit about Trump. What I give a shit about is a two-tiered system that engages in unlawful ways, like Chuck Schumer told us, that the FBI will find 6 ways from Sunday going after anyone that criticizes them like Donald Trump. And then that same two-tiered system for the exact same type of crimes, letting the people that were Trump's opposition off the hook. That's what I care about. So when you say, oh, no, like, clearly, it's not that I'm okay with the two-tier. I call this stuff out. I'm not biased or anything. Then my question is, it is an unprecedented situation in the history of this country. It's an unprecedented situation in the history of this country that our FBI spied on a sitting president using unverified opposition research from his opponent that was sourced by a Russian spy accusing Trump of working with Russian spies. That is one of the biggest political scandals in the history of this country. And you say...
I say that just because I said that I don't like either party and I'm not pleased with the decision that I'm being given doesn't automatically equate to I comment equally on every single thing that happens in politics on both sides. And I think that's disingenuous of you to try to straw man me into that position.
I think what I'm showing is that you really don't give a shit if there is a two-tiered system. You don't care.
I mean, I'm a leftist.
You don't care at all. And so when
I'm a socialist. Principally, I'm against a two-tiered system.
Well, then, okay, then you're going to look into that FISA warrant. You're going to say, "Holy shit, this is corrupt." If you found out,
I'll look into it. I'm not that familiar with it. Like I said,
okay, if you found out in several other incidents, the FBI engaged in a two-tier system, provably.
I don't like the FBI either, dude. I'm a leftist.
Please let me finish. And all of this is around. If you find that out, and you find out that they clearly in their writings were exhibiting bias, that they didn't like Trump, would that influence whether or not you think it's a double standard when literally you're admitting that basically it just came up to the preference of Jack Smith and Hur, what they thought a jury might think?
If it came down to, if we didn't have the prevalence of evidence that we have with regards to Trump's willfulness to illegally retain confidential material that belonged to the United States government, if none of that evidence was present and this really was just... It did just come out. It appeared to be that he had just been like the target of a political hit job. Yeah, I absolutely would have an issue with that. I think that while I of course don't think that our current system is 100% fair, not nearly as much as I would like it to be when it comes to democratically electing our leaders. I think that if we literally have a weaponized Department of Justice specifically targeting people they don't want to run for no other reason than they don't like them, I think that's a dangerous precedent set.
Okay, couple more things, right? And then we can end it or whatever you want to do. One, so you're admitting that at least on the specific case that I just outlined you, the reason they didn't charge was because Biden's diminished mental faculties. No. You're not. Okay, let's read that again.
Well, no, actually.
No, it's fine. Further commentary necessary.
I know you don't want me to commentary further, but I would really like to establish my position here. The reason that...
I'll to read it
The
again.
reason that Hur
Ready?
didn't want, the reason that Hur
Given the
didn't seek
intelligence,
conviction.
nope, I'm going to read it
All
again.
right.
So you're saying that this doesn't say the reason they're not charging him is mental faculties or deficiencies? Let's read what it says. Given the intelligence and military officials' presence and topic discussed at the meeting, Mr. Biden recounted for his monitor, Mr. Biden should have realized his notes did or likely contain classified information. But taken as a whole, the evidence will likely leave juries with reasonable doubts about Mr. Biden knew he was sharing classified information and he intended to. For these jurors, Biden's apparent lapses and failures in February and April 2017 will likely appear consistent with diminished faculties and faulty memory he showed Zwanitzer's interview recordings and in our interview of him. So proceed. You're saying that's not what they're saying? They're not saying, a jury wouldn't find this because of diminished mental faculties?
On the first page, during the executive summary, like the final paragraph of the executive summary, it says, we conclude that the evidence does not establish Mr. Biden's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. The evidence doesn't seem to be there in order to convict him. So it's not to do... Part of that evidence does include the fact that he is a dementia-riddled goon. Part of that evidence also is that we don't literally have phone recordings of him admitting that what he has is secret and that he's not supposed to have it. We don't have text messages between his employees coordinating the movement of and the hiding of those boxes. Like, there's a lot. I just...
Go ahead, go on with the spiel. So what happens is there are many things that Biden was accused of doing that was of guilt here. For example, there are different troves. Right? There's different troves of documents.
I conceded to you that he should not have had those documents.
Let me finish. Please let me finish. It's irrelevant to what I'm talking about. For example, there are the Afghanistan documents. Then there are his classified notebooks. Then there's the crime of him reading the classified material to his writer. And what's happening is you're reading the executive summary that just says, we don't think there was enough evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, reasonable doubt, part of that would be because Biden has dementia. But you're right, on each specific charge, they could say, well, there's other mitigating factors on this specific charge. On the charge that I just outlined, him reading classified material to someone without a clearance, it clearly shows that he said that could have been classified. He said it was probably classified at one point, and they say Biden should have absolutely knew it was classified, and that the reason they're not charging him for that, they only give one reason. That a jury would look at it and say, he seems confused. He seems to have mental deficiencies. So it may be true that there are other potential defenses when it comes to the Afghanistan documents, defenses that are absolutely nonsense. Like one of the defenses they offer is, well, when he admits, again on tape, I found the classified materials downstairs and they're about Afghanistan.
What happened after
potentially that? You tell me.
I believe that he cooperated with the returning of those documents once he found them.
No, that's not what happened. The recording was in 2017. He said, I found the classified stuff downstairs, and he never returned.
Did the FBI have access to that recording at the time that he made it?
It's irrelevant.
No, it's very relevant because how would they know to go after those documents if they didn't even know he had them?
Here we go. And so now what you're saying is it's okay to know you have classified documents and know it's illegal. But unless the FBI asks back from them, well, then you're okay.
No, that's not what I said. Actually, I've conceded. No, stop. My turn. I've conceded to you several times that Biden shouldn't have had them and he should have returned them immediately. Which once he knew of their I don't know how you could, in good faith, compare these two and go, yes, there's definitely a double standard. They're completely incomparable.
Again, so what you just did was I said that the statute outlines a crime. Did he willfully know that he had classified material? Yes, he says on tape, I have classified material. I have these Afghanistan documents.
Did he know he's breaking the law?
Yes. Does he know that he's not allowed to have classified material?
That's not what I asked.
Yes. He knows he's not allowed to have classified material. It's against the law. The argument that they're trying to make with the notebooks is... Did he know that he was breaking
the law and sharing it? And do you think that's something you could prove to a jury beyond a reasonable doubt? Because the legal experts in this matter didn't seem to think so, including Hur, who's a conservative.
Two things. One, yes, he absolutely knew. I noticed that you like to hurry up and slide and move the goalposts every single time you're losing a specific argument. But where have I done it?
You run off on dialogue trees constantly, Rob. You bombard me with different points. You gish gallop me at every chance. And then when I try to interject and address one point at a time, you accuse me of interrupting.
Okay, so here we go. So the first point, yes, he knew Like, why did you bring up the FBI? So here's what I say. The statute says if you willfully retain, he knows that having classified, and the document makes this very clear. The Hur Report makes it very clear. He knows what the rules with
he
classified
says that
documents.
It says in the second paragraph of the summary he had it. Yeah, I conceded that to you. Stop spying that I didn't.
Let me finish. Please let me finish. So he has these. Like, I have to paint this picture for you. Look, give me 2 minutes and I'll play Steelman for you. Well, with his notebooks, Biden argued that even though he knew that there was possible classified documents there, he knew previously that Reagan was allowed to keep his notebooks. So he thought there was an exemption with those classified materials because it was in his notebooks and he was allowed to keep, right? Isn't that an argument they make?
Well, that's something that they reference, yeah, is that it was common practice for people to keep personal notes. Do you have an issue with Reagan taking those diaries home?
Not really.
Okay. I do too. I do have an issue with Reagan taking those diaries home containing confidential. I have an issue with Biden holding those notebooks, and I have an issue with the boxes that Trump had.
I don't have an issue in the sense that I don't think that Reagan should have been charged with a crime. I don't think Trump should have been charged.
If you don't think
I don't think Hillary should have been charged. I don't think Biden should have been charged.
That's my standard. What do you think?
Now let me finish. So that's what they say about the notebooks. You can't say that about the Afghanistan documents. Biden can't say, "Oh, I thought I was allowed to have classified." He can't say that.
Weren't those in
That's
his
not a
Delaware
defense
home?
he has. Please,
he has multiple homes.
Let me finish. Please, I do. So when he says in 2017, I found the box of classified Afghanistan documents downstairs, at that point, he knew that was a crime. Now, let's give the benefit of the doubt and say he realized it and went, oh, shit. And then he goes down that week and he calls the relevant people at NARA or the FBI and they come collect the classified documents. Absolutely, I don't have a problem with that. But he didn't. He knew that he had the classified material and for 8 years, let it go.
Yeah.
That's a crime.
Then why didn't they indict him?
That's a great question. They didn't indict him because there's a double standard.
Okay, what's the double standard?
Because
I've asked you a few times to define it. Is it just they don't like Trump?
That's right. That's the double. Or let me put it in words that maybe you could understand from Chuck Schumer. They'll find six. Oh, you're laughing. They'll find 6 ways from Sunday getting back at Donald.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I genuinely didn't.
Right. Do you think Chuck Schumer had reason to lie when he said that the FBI was going to find 6 ways from Sunday to get Donald Trump?
I think it was a stupid thing for him to say.
Do you think when you had people like Peter Strzok at the FBI, that was one of the agents tasked with both the Hillary investigation and the Trump investigation, texting his lover that also worked at the FBI that they were going to find an insurance policy to stop Donald Trump, that's troubling?
I think that was also probably a stupid thing to say.
Do you think that the FBI illegally spying on Trump's team using unverified opposition research paid for by Hillary Clinton, sourced by a Russian spy, accusing Trump of working with Russian spies, was something incredibly corrupt by the FBI?
I mean, if that conspiracy that you just laid out is true, then yeah, I think that'd be pretty bad.
Do you think when they charge Paul Manafort for failing to register as a foreign lobbyist and say in the indictment, and it was from 2013, and he worked with the Podesta Group, that was the lobbying firm that was founded by John Podesta, who was Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, and yet no one at the Podesta Group was charged with any crime, even though they committed the exact same crime at the exact same time with Paul Manafort? That's something that's
Manafort was charged, right?
Yes,
okay,
Manafort
why
was charged.
Should everybody be charged for the same crime that he was if he was the one who committed it?
Because they committed it together.
Did they knowingly commit it together?
Yes, they both knowingly were lobbyists.
No. Everyone else at the lobby. Did they all conspire together?
Yes. A lobbyist knows when they're lobbying for a foreign entity that they have to fill out paperwork. In fact, I'm not even sure there is a portion for intent necessary in failing to register as a foreign lobbyist.
This isn't something I'm really super familiar with. I didn't review this leading up to tonight.
You're not. And here's the point. When you laugh at that, when I could show dozens of examples of the double standard and you can't answer, when I finally get you to admit, yeah, I guess that's a crime. All you could say is, well, why didn't Hur charge it? And I say there's a double standard and you laugh.
I laugh. I actually think it's gut-bustingly hilarious that you think that the only reason that Donald Trump was indicted and Joe Biden, after a 388 bitch fest from her about how he couldn't find anything to convict or to indict Biden on, I think that if you come away from that and you go, well, the only reason that could have happened is because they don't like Trump, I think that is actually funny, yes.
If the exact same indictment exists on Donald Trump, right? Except instead of Smith,
Except he was
let's say
stupid enough, number one, to have his voice on record saying how many times he knew that he wasn't supposed to be showing it.
Okay.
And
he has dementia. A jury will think he has dementia.
Okay, then does dementia explain away his efforts to hide the boxes, move the boxes, destroy the boxes, ordering people to do all those actions?
If you wouldn't interrupt me,
I haven't heard you address any of those actions yet.
If you wouldn't interrupt me, I would answer. Right? Let's assume instead of Jack Smith, it's someone that's, from Trump's team appointed. And they outline all this shit. And they say, he moved the boxes. He did this. He did that. The exact same indictment. Everything that you're bitching about here. And it says, but we're going to decline charges because we think that this dude's got dementia. He doesn't even know what the fuck he's talking about. So we're going to decline charges because we think reasonable jurists would say, oh, well, this guy's just a doddering old man. He doesn't know what he's doing. You would have been fine with that,
I wouldn't
correct?
Have.
Why?
Because I think that the efforts to hide, move, and or destroy the boxes of documents indicate a willfulness and a knowledge that you're breaking the law.
So that's a willfulness, but admitting on tape saying, I have these documents downstairs that are classified, and then refusing to hand them over for 8 years isn't willfulness.
Where in this report does it say he refused to hand them over for 8 years?
Well, again, this gets back to the question. When I first brought this up, you said, did the FBI come in? So you're implying, and then when I said, what does that have to do with it? If he knew they were there and he didn't hand them over, then I think that it would be fair language to say he refused to hand them over.
I don't think it's fair language at all, but let me ask you this. Does President Biden own multiple homes?
What language would you use?
Does President Biden own multiple homes? Do you think that if you own multiple homes, you live an equal amount of time in each of them, or maybe you spend more time at your favorite home, which is his Virginia home? No, it's completely.
This question is
it's completely relevant. I can explain why if you let me.
This question has no relevance, but yes, you probably spend different amounts of times at different homes.
So do you think it's possible to have some things in storage in the basement of a home you rarely visit, that you aren't even aware are down there, that you haven't visited in a long time, that you eventually go down there and discover? Do you think that's possible?
Yep. Okay, what's that have to do with this? So let's take your scenario further. I'm rarely at my Virginia house. Rarely. There's shit in the basement I don't even look at, right? But never. But then I go down one day and I'm like, oh shit, classified documents.
Yeah.
And then I don't hand them in.
Yeah, that's bad.
What does what you just said? Oh, but you spend more time in the Delaware house. Who gives a fuck? What's that have to do with? At that point, once I see there are classified material and I know I'm not allowed to have it, and I see it, and instead of handing it over, I say, you know what? I'm going to keep it. I'm not going to hand it back.
Bad. I already said that.
That's a crime. It's more than bad.
If it's a crime, why isn't he being indicted?
Because there's a double standard.
Okay, what is the double standard? Can you please...
The double standard is Chuck Schumer said they'll find 6 ways from Sunday to go after Trump.
So one guy said one time that they really don't like Trump and they're going to try really hard to get him convicted of something.
All right, so let's go to...
And that's evidence. That is evidence to the grand conspiracy that not only are we going to unseat Trump from ever being able to participate in democracy again, but here's also evidence that we exonerate all Democrats and all people we like, and even Mike Pence. We like him too, I guess. Yeah. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
You're asking for evidence, correct?
I'm asking for any evidence from you, yes.
Okay, put yourself on mute. I'll go for about 30 minutes here. Ready?
No, I'm not going to let you go for. I'm not going to let you go for 30 minutes now.
You want evidence? Number one, the FBI accused Trump of being. The FBI accused you. We can go
point by point with everything you're going to bring up, and you're not going to rant for 30 minutes now.
One, for the first time in history, the FBI accused Trump of being a Russian spy. They took evidence that they knew was unverified, that they knew was sourced by Trump's opponent. Opposition research, dirt, from Hillary Clinton. They knew the primary subsource was an alleged Russian spy. They took that information and used it to spy on Donald Trump, getting FISA warrants 4 times.
What does this have to do with the indictment in the Hur Report?
Please, let me...
I asked to stay on topic at the very beginning of the discussion.
No,
yes, I
again,
did. Okay, all right. Hold on a second, dude. If you're just gonna lie about shit that I've said,
I'm just gonna mute you.
Right, then I'm just gonna
You're not gonna let me
leave.
finish here. Then leave. But let me say, originally
is
you
this
said
how you have productive conversations with your opposition?
Listen, let's say me and you agree to talk about what tastes better, apples or bananas. Then a half hour in the conversation, I say, not only that, cherries taste good. And you say, I'd like to hear evidence cherries taste good.
No, I would say
then
we were talking about apples and bananas, and that's what I agreed to discuss.
Then I start to give evidence cherries taste. You're like, you don't have any evidence cherries taste good. And I'm like, here's a bunch of it. And you're like, why are you talking about this? This isn't what we agreed to talk about.
That's correct.
You
it's
just
not what we
asked
agreed
me
to talk
for
about.
evidence. You just asked me. So here's what happened. Let me rehash for those of you. You're stuck in a hole. You admit that Biden committed a crime with these Afghanistan documents. You can't respond to it. So then you're defaulting to just saying, then why didn't Hur charge him? That's the only defense you have now. Then why didn't Hur charge? I say there's a double standard at places like the FBI.
The reason Hur didn't charge him is because there wasn't sufficient evidence to convince a jury.
I'll give you a chance to talk. I say the reason there's a double standard is because they don't like Trump. Just like Chuck Schumer said. You say, just because what one guy said, you don't have evidence. I say, let's start outlining the evidence of the FBI's double standard against Trump.
I don't give a shit.
You say, I don't want to hear this.
I don't give a shit. Yeah,
now you can go.
I don't give a shit about any of that. I'd like to refocus the discussion. Can you tell me in explicit terms why? How? Because let me say this, okay? From my perspective, in order to indicate a double standard, the cases would have to be near 1-to-1 identical.
That's not true.
Okay, why not?
Because if there are outlines of crimes, right, and there are different degrees of how bad, for example, if we say for the first time in history, we're going to take away the president's driver's license for speeding, right? And you say Trump was going 65, he loses it. Biden was going 60, which is also over the limit, but we're not going to charge him with that. And you say, but technically that was speeding as well. And they just say, no, technically it wasn't. They're not saying Trump committed the crime worse. They're saying Trump committed the crime and it's worth charging and Biden didn't. That's what they're saying, right? So the argument, it doesn't have to be analogous exactly 1-to-1, right? That's a misnomer, right? There is a separate charge that could be charged, which is a separate statute if you want to charge Trump with the idea of obstructing justice. The specific statute that says when you're requested to hand over documents, you must hand them over. That's a specific statute.
Which I agree,
but they're
Biden
also
violated.
charging Trump with... They're also charging Trump with Section E, which talks about the simple willfulness of mishandling classified information. That's the exact reason that they raided his home in the first place. They didn't raid Biden's home, and they got him dead to rights admitting that he violated that law, but they're letting him off the hook, and you can't excuse it. All you could say is, yeah, but he cooperated. But he didn't cooperate, as I've already outlined, which you also haven't been able to respond to. What he did was knowingly keep that documents for years and years and years. And then once he weaponized his Justice Department, as you admitted, in an unprecedented situation to go after a president for this, once he weaponized them, right?
I didn't admit to the weaponization. I admitted that it was unprecedented.
Well, it doesn't matter if it was unprecedented. Fine, we'll use it. I say weaponized, you say unprecedented. Once he did that and he realized, I did the same thing Trump's accused of, he said, and by the way, I'll appoint a special counsel, they can have this stuff back. That's not cooperating.
So...
That's not a reason to let him off the hook. Under 18 U.S.C.
793 requires the defendant to willfully retain the document and fail to deliver it to an employee or officer entitled to receive it. So if you can take it up with her, I guess. It sounds like that's who you're really mad at here. The dude tried to nail Biden on not only 18 U.S.C. 793E, but every other section of the espionage, there were so many different things that were explored within the Hur Report, and all of it amounted to nothing. He didn't think he had a strong enough case. So, I mean, you can kick and scream as much as you want, but this is just the way that things turned out.
So I say it's a double standard. It's ridiculous. The evidence that Hur outlines was enough to bring charges. You can't defend it. All you say is take it up with
I don't think that the evidence is 1-to-1 equivalent with what was available with Trump.
Read Section E. You just read that. Read Section E again. Can you read that? What you just read.
All right.
Fair enough.
18 U.S. So this is the section that I read earlier. To prove unauthorized retention of national defense information under 18 U.S.C. 793, the government must show 1, the defendant had unauthorized possession of a document, writing or note. Both did.
Stop.
Okay. I'm gonna go through that, and I'm gonna address that. Don't worry.
That's what I want. Go for
Part 2, the document, writing or note related to the national defense. I would say probably both did. I didn't go into specific detail on the documents that. Yeah, so yes. I mean, we don't know, but I would say probably
classified
both did.
Means that they were. Yes.
And 3, the defendant willfully retained the document, writing or note, and failed to deliver it to an employee or officer entitled to receive it. That's where you're gonna get tripped up.
Okay, so when Biden says, I have the classified documents in the basement.
Do you think Biden has dementia?
I think Biden's confused, but first off, remember, this is 2017.
Okay.
You think he's had dementia since 2017?
How old was he in 2017? My grandfather had dementia from his late 60s to his death.
Well, here's what I'll say about this, right? The idea that Biden effectively has immunity from any crime because he has dementia, but simultaneously should be president of the United States is nonsense.
Okay, I don't think anybody was claiming that he had immunity from any crime because of his dementia. I would agree that it's nonsense, the electoral position that we've all been forced into, where we have to choose like two different colored pieces of shit. I'm just going to choose the piece of shit that's aligned with a party that seems to be, generally speaking, more in line with my values, which is what I always do when I vote. But with regards to whether or not, like, I don't understand where the equivalency is between the evidence that was provided in the Hur Report and the evidence in the Trump indictment.
Again, what you're trying to do, you just read the legal statute.
I read the legal
right?
statute, and I read the part
it is
that
okay, so we're at now you're admitting section 1 and 2. Now we're on section 3, that he willfully retained and didn't hand it over to the proper
Hur said he would have
authorities.
trouble establishing to a jury, yes.
Okay, so that's what we're debating. That section.
Correct.
We could dispute. Okay, if Biden did that, should he be charged? Regardless if Trump never existed.
Well, so first of all, if he did it, then yes, he should. The issue here, though, with regards to the special counsel report and with regards to the Department of Justice, isn't actually whether or not he did it. It's whether or not you can prove that he willfully did it to a jury.
Okay, and so if you're on a jury and you hear this, the guy on tape says in 2017, I have the classified Afghanistan documents. I found them in the basement. Then you find those documents in his Delaware house in 2023, right? 6-7 years later. Would you say, yep, that's proof that he knew he had classified material and he did not hand it over?
It depends on whether or not he's presenting himself as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with dementia.
So the only defense that you could come up with is, in 2017, Biden had dementia. No. Then what's the other defense? You just said that as a jurist, okay, so he could have just forgotten.
Yeah. It's incredibly negligent and irresponsible, but yeah, he could have just forgotten.
Okay, so guy says, I have classified documents. He says it, and then it's an excuse. You could now admit, it is a legal defense, you're saying, to mishandle classified documents. Admit on tape, I have classified documents. If you say, You're
conflating legal defense with the ability to establish a solid case. It's not like just because something could be used to poke a hole in what you would think would be a solid case doesn't make that like individual point automatically a strong defense in and of itself. You would agree with this, yes?
No.
Why not?
What I would say is the argument is overwhelming that this is proof that he knowingly, wittingly had classified information and he didn't hand it over. Just like on the reading the records to the ghostwriter. All right. I do not find it persuasive to say, but he's old. He probably forgot.
Well, that's. I mean,
back in
so if they had a jury full of Rob Noerrs,
particularly when the Biden team is furious at the mere allegation. In fact, let me ask you this: Biden would have to present that defense for the jury to listen to it, correct?
Can you rephrase that? I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
So the allegation seems to be this. Hur says, well, we couldn't bring the charges because what we're worried about is if we did, we get in front of a jury and Biden stands up and starts drooling on himself and goes,
I don't think that was the only issue that Hur had. No, I think it was a combination of a lack of sufficient evidence mixed with, if we already don't have enough evidence and then Biden's going to get up there and go, oh, I don't know where I am. Obviously, we're not going to convince a jury. And I would agree with him.
But we do have enough evidence. I just outlined it to you.
You seem to think that. The legal experts don't.
So then... Right, and so what you're defaulting to, this is called an appeal to authority. So when I have a bunch of examples...
It's not an appeal. Hold on, no. You're not going to accuse me of making a logical fallacy when I didn't. It's not fallacious to appeal to an authority when it's their field of authority. It's only fallacious if I were to say that Taylor Swift said Joe Biden was innocent. Who the fuck cares?
That's not true. It could be fallacious if so for example, if I have a lawyer, right, that comes on right now, if a lawyer, my friend Lecture Fan comes on and says, Rob's right, you're wrong, you would concede because you'd say,
Lecture Fan's an idiot, so yeah, I probably wouldn't care.
Oh, I think Hur's an idiot. I think he's biased.
What's that?
Now what? I think Hur's an idiot. I think Hur's biased. Okay. Now, where are we?
I don't know.
When I say appeal to authority, that's literally what you're doing. So what happens is, this happens all the time. I accuse the authorities of engaging in a double standard or corrupt. I then look at the things that we have as verifiable proof, right? These are the facts that we could all agree on. And then I show based on those facts, we could see that there's a double standard. That's what's happening in this conversation. So I'm like, let's take the facts we agree on. For example, we're talking about these Afghanistan files. He admits on tape, I found them in the basement, right? We go through it. This is what's admitted on tape. You say, but there's not sufficient evidence. That's clearly sufficient evidence. He says,
So
I have these classified documents and we know he never handed them over. You say, but Hur says, it's Hur's opinion that jurists could say, well, we don't believe it because we have dementia. In fact, you go further than that. You say, if I was a jurist, I would say, no, I'm not going to convict because maybe he forgot or maybe he has dementia.
I would say if you were a jurist, you would, because you've just told me that you don't personally find the evidence or lack thereof compelling when it comes to exonerating Biden. So if you were you would essentially be the juror that Hur would be looking for. But what Hur was saying in his report is that he didn't think that was statistically likely. He didn't think it was possible that he was going to get a jury full of people who would all both find the evidence sufficient to convict and be able to just fully dismiss how fucking brain melted Biden is.
I'll get through. It's as always, it's difficult to like. So what happens is he even says, if I was a jurist, I wouldn't convict because I would say maybe he's confused or maybe he has dementia. And so I say, so then the reason that we're saying is Joe Biden has literal immunity from any crime that requires police. That's what you said. I said, if you were on the jury and this guy said, I forgot, would you convict? You said, well, it depends on his mental state. If he could have forgot, he has dementia. That's what you said.
Well, first you were saying that's what I was saying you said.
Let me finish. So then I said, well, that gives Biden practical immunity then. Because as long as enough people said he has dementia, he now has practical immunity from any crime that requires intent.
Well, if he actually has dementia, he can't have the intent to commit a crime. He doesn't know where he is. How would he know how to plan and carry out a crime?
So he needs to be president. He's so addled that he can't be held accountable for any crime, but he's got it together enough that he should be president. Great.
I didn't say that either. All I've said with regards to the election, I've said with regards to the election is I would prefer Biden over Trump. I think Biden is more capable than Trump, and I think that says a lot about Donald Trump's fucking abysmal failure in his term. When I would prefer a dementia patient over him.
Right. Your opinion means nothing to me. What you're saying is, despite the fact that he has dementia, you think that he's qualified to be president in this circumstance.
That's not what I said.
That's who you're voting for. Are you voting for Biden?
Yeah, that doesn't mean I think he's qualified.
Do you think that? You're voting for Biden. Do you think he has dementia to the point where he can't be charged with any crimes that require intent?
No.
You don't? No. Then why isn't he being charged?
Because there was a lack of sufficient evidence.
Okay, so give me the lack of
sufficient evidence. All right, yeah. Let me reach into my bag of impossibilities here.
Give me the explanation for the lack of sufficient evidence. Let's go again.
Yeah, can we actually advance the conversation past the simple recordings and go on to where, like, deliberately for half a year refused to return any of the boxes? When did Biden do anything similar to that?
You say there's a lack of evidence. We'll go back to it. He says on tape, I have the
I am not arguing any. I haven't argued any of that with you. Can we move on to where Trump refused to return the boxes and directed people to hide them?
How can you say lack of evidence?
I said insufficient evidence, not lack of.
How can you say insufficient evidence that's outside the scope of Biden's dementia? Because that's what I just said.
Because that's what the Hur Report says, and I'm not a legal expert.
Okay, so then we get back to
that. I'm not pompous enough to assume that I know better than people that work in the Department of Justice as to how the legal system works.
So
it's not an interrogation. This is supposed to be a discussion, Rob.
See you later. See you later then. Why are you on here debating?
Are you running now? Like, what's going on? It's not even a debate. You're just lecturing at me. Can I have a turn here?
No, I'm not running.
Okay.
No, that's right. No, I'm going to finish what I'm saying. I'm not running. If your argument is, yeah, I can't deal with the facts that you're outlining, I'll just say Hur disagrees, and I'm not a legal expert, so it doesn't matter. Why the fuck am I talking to you?
I've dealt with it plenty. Can you address what's the analogous action to
you have not dealt with it. You have not dealt with. Can you explain to me the lack of sufficient evidence other than Biden's dementia when he says on tape, I have the classified Afghanistan document?
Yeah, because clearly that doesn't seem to be enough to convict him with willful intent.
Why? Explain to me why.
Because I don't think that one piece of evidence should ever be enough in and of itself to convict someone. And I think you would agree with that.
Okay, so then
it's a combination of evidence.
That's farcical. But there's all the time that one people, for example. So you're saying that if they find And by the way, it's not just one piece of evidence. Even if we just look at this one piece of evidence, because Hur outlines there's motivation.
Then why are you hyper-focusing on the one recording of him like saying,
because
I found
if
the boxes?
there is evidence, if there is a smoking gun piece of evidence that you committed a crime, then that's sufficient to charge for that crime. There's other evidence. For example, we talked about him admitting this is probably classified and reading it to his writer.
I even said that.
Right. So again, you keep saying that's bad. What we're talking about is, does it rise to the level of a
Correct.
crime? Yes, it clearly
No,
does. So
it doesn't.
I'm citing yes.
Well,
yeah,
hold on. It
doesn't
probably does rise to the level of a crime, but it seems to not rise to the level that they're willing to indict him.
Okay, so now we're talking about two specific scenarios. We have scenario one, the Afghanistan documents. He admits, I know they're classified. He doesn't hand them over. You say that the reason we don't charge for that is because, what's the defense?
With the Afghanistan documents? Because you wouldn't,
Yes.
I don't think that there's enough evidence to sufficiently prove that he had a criminal intent.
All we need, you read the standard, is that he had simple willfulness, that he knew that he wasn't allowed to have the classified
No, he needed
documents.
to know that he was acting in an illegal manner, not that he didn't know he was...
Right. He knows. In fact, Hur goes on to specifically in this to talk about, he knows what the rules for classified documents are. So again, if he says they're classified and he's a 40-year politician and knows he's not allowed to have classified material, that's willfulness. So explain to me what the lack of evidence is, why he shouldn't be charged.
Because that's one piece of evidence, Rob.
Okay, no. Why shouldn't he be charged on that charge?
Can we address the differences in these two so we can actually compare and contrast
Why
them?
shouldn't he be charged? Why shouldn't he be charged? Saying it's one piece of evidence. Let's say that's the only crime he committed. Well,
If
you
he
shouldn't be
committed
charged
the
if
crime,
you only
he probably
committed one
should
crime.
be charged. But again, as I've addressed
Why wasn't he
I've
charged?
addressed it feels like a bunch of times already. The issue with the Hur Report isn't whether or not Biden broke the law or whether or not he should be charged. It's whether or not Hur thought that he was capable of establishing both of those to a jury.
And what's the evidence what's the rationale that he may not have been able to establish it to a jury?
It's a combination of the different pieces of evidence that he collected, as well as Biden's diminished mental state.
Okay, so give me the pieces of evidence to collect. I have read it, right? And this is what's funny. I keep saying it's because of dementia. That's what, and you're like, no, there's more. I'm asking you. Okay, right. It's not just dementia, and so I'm asking you. Go ahead. What's the more evidence? Go.
Well, so I don't think that just having a phone call where you say, I found these boxes, I don't think I'm supposed to have them, in and of itself proves that you are a criminal.
You said at the beginning with Trump that it did.
No.
Yes.
No. There's a lot. See,
Yes.
Because I said that piece of evidence in and of itself. With Trump, it's a lot more than that. And again, Biden never made any efforts. He never directed anybody to hide the boxes. Once he knew that people were coming after them, he surrendered them willingly. He let the FBI search his home willingly. He surrendered everything willingly. He gave a testimony.
You're moving on to stuff that's completely irrelevant.
It's not irrelevant,
You're moving
Rob.
on to something.
It's
it
about
is
the
irrelevant.
coalescence of evidence being able to build a strong case.
We could go back with this, right? So one, what you're doing is saying it's okay if he broke the law if he cooperated 7 years later. That's absurd. There's no standard. Secondly, we've already argued why there's a separate standard for a case that's basically obstruction. If the argument you're going to make is Trump obstructed and he should be charged with that, but neither Trump nor Biden should be charged with the mishandling of classified documents, fine. Or if the arguments you're going to make is Trump did worse because he obstructed, but both him and Biden should be charged with mishandling classified documents, fine. But that's not what you're doing. What happened is we started off the conversation and you said, yes, if Trump, just from this tape alone, on tape admitting, oh, this stuff's classified and I shouldn't have it, and blah, 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 that's sufficient for you. That one piece of evidence would be sufficient for you to say, yes, he's guilty. Now, when I say, okay, Joe Biden said on tape, I have the classified Afghanistan documents, that proves willful retention. You say that one piece of evidence isn't enough. I want you to explain to me why that one piece of evidence isn't enough.
I would like to move on to the Trump obstruction.
Right, you can't explain.
No, I'm tired of repeating myself.
Last question then. Let me add, so you're saying because it's not just about whether or not a crime was committed, it's about whether or not a jury would convict.
And no wonder you were willing to engage in debate with me. Like, you're just not willing to have a good faith discussion whatsoever. We can't go over the facts. We can't follow like a pace of discussion we both agree on. I just have to be rammed into your fucking dialogue trees as hard as you want me to.
I'll ask the question again. You said that it's not just about whether he committed a crime. It's whether or not you could get a jury to convict, correct?
Do you think that Joseph Biden has dementia, or do you think he's some sort of like conscious, super hyper experienced actor? Which one is it?
I think Joe Biden probably has some forms of dementia now. Dementia is not an excuse for, one, the fact that some of these crimes started when he was in the Senate. Second, the ones we're talking specifically about here is from 2017, and he had more cognitive faculties. You could even see from recordings and things he was doing in 2017. I think currently he basically has dementia, but if he mishandled classified documents now, dementia still isn't an excuse. It could be an excuse if it happened once, but if you're repeatedly reading material that you're acknowledging is classified to a ghostwriter over and over on tape, dementia is not a significant defense to that. I would still find him guilty. Now, I answered your question. Will you answer mine? My question is, my question is as follows. No, I already said he should have been indicted.
Then why should Biden be indicted and Trump shouldn't?
I'm not gonna. I answered your question, so I'm going to. My question is this: you're saying that it's not just whether or not a crime was committed; it's whether or not you could get a jury to convict.
Why should Biden be indicted but Trump shouldn't?
He shouldn't.
Oh, you don't think Biden should be indicted?
That's correct. Okay. I said that both.
So
Biden,
your issue more
Trump,
is
Hillary,
with the fact that Trump was indicted rather than the fact that all of these people weren't indicted, because it sure.
I will answer. I will answer you in good faith if you give me a couple seconds and then agree to answer my question afterwards.
I've answered plenty of your questions.
Here's what my answer is. Right. I think that there are certain crimes that happen all the time in Washington, such as failing to register as a foreign lobbyist, mishandling classified documents, and I think if you're going to selectively. Well, no, yes, but
Sorry.
no. But if you're going to, if you're going to selectively single people out, that's wrong. So, for example, the easier example is failing to register as a foreign lobbyist. It's the worst kept secret in Washington. Literally, thousands upon thousands of lawyers at lobbying firms do this every year, and we never charge any of them. But if we're going to start saying, well, we're going to charge people connected to Trump, I disagree with that. Same reason I would disagree charging Hillary for the mishandling of classified, because the truth is Obama did it, Bush did it. All of these people do it, right? So unless I would say no, you just wag your finger at them and you say no, or you charge all of them. My preference would be to charge none, because I think this happens all the time. But if you're going to start charging, if you say, well, now the standard is we're going to charge, then you got to charge them all. That's what my argument is. I don't give a fuck about Joe Biden. I don't give a fuck about Donald Trump. I care about a two-tier justice system that over and over is like, they're going to go after people connected that they don't like Trump and MAGA people, as harsh as possible, over and over and over. And then when it comes to his political opponents, they're going to go as easy as possible. Every single time. That's what happens. So that's what my issue is.
With regards to the retention of classified documents, you would say that neither should be charged. What about the obstruction?
It's different. We'll get to the obstruction.
Can we get to that now, please?
No, because you're going to answer my question that I had first. I have a couple
I've answered
questions
plenty
for you
of
very
your questions, Rob. A discussion is a back and forth, a cooperative exercise.
I'm going to give you the opportunity to end this with talking about the obstruction, right? So you'll get the last word.
I don't want to talk. I want to have a conversation. I want to have a back and forth.
The last conversation that will stick in people's minds the most will be the topic that you want, the obstruction. Okay?
I just want to know if you think what he did was bad.
So I think that the actual mishandling of classified information was bad.
Then why don't you think that any of them should be indicted?
You've said I don't know how many times you think what Biden did was bad, but don't think he should be indicted.
I think I said that he probably should be. I just said that I don't think that, according to her, he couldn't prove the case to a jury. I've been remarkably consistent throughout all this.
You did not say that. You did not say that Biden should be charged.
Is hilarious.
This is the first time in this entire discussion that you said that Biden should be indicted.
I'm recording this too, and I have a pretty good memory. I know that's not true.
I will eat crow. I will publicly go on X.
I'm not asking you to do that. I'm just asking you to take me honestly and in good faith here.
You or anyone in your audience that's listening, clip when JC here said, Well,
I don't have a lot.
Don't
Nah,
sell yourself short.
Oh,
who gives a fuck? That doesn't matter. That doesn't mean who's right or wrong.
course
That
not.
shit's all. But what I'm saying is, anyone who's listening on
Obviously
my
not in
audience,
this
your
case.
audience, anyone that heard you previously say, "I think Joe Biden should be indicted," go ahead and clip it.
Well, I think what I said was I think they should both be held criminally liable for the retention of documents.
I don't recall you ever saying that either. But fair enough.
Right after I said that, you said I don't think either of them should.
Okay, now I'm going to get to this. We'll see. I'll look. Do you think you're saying that the argument isn't just whether or not they committed a crime? It's whether or not you could get a jury to convict.
Well, that was what the Hur Report. That was what their conclusion was, that he did. Like it says right up top, he willfully retained the documents, but whether or not they could convince a jury of that is what's in question here. It was the opinion of the. It was the opinion of the special counsel that he probably did willfully retain these, but whether or not you could convince a jury of that is what's at issue here. That's why I brought up the case precedent.
Okay.
You know?
Okay, and so you would also agree that it says not only did he had dementia, but he would perceive as a likable old man.
That was part of it. Yes.
So and last question real quick, and then I'll make my point. Where would this jury trial have been held?
I'm not particularly familiar.
It would have been D.C.
Okay.
Would it shock you to know it would have been D.C.? Probably.
It would probably not blow my mind, no.
Okay. So then what this is effectively saying is that if we have an investigator that says, well, this trial is going to be heard in a venue where it's 90% favorability for the person I'm looking into, and they're going to understand that there's political ramifications for this, I literally can't charge him with any crime because a jury could always just say, we like him.
Like I said, the Hur Report was like 300 some pages of bitching.
Do you understand what I just said to you? That means that literally
It's
Joe
a
Biden has
strategic
effective
assessment.
immunity.
If it's an accurate statement, regardless of your opinion of the like the composition of the jury, if what he's saying is true, then you can just rage at the truth, I guess. If that's like,
it has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with raging at the truth. What I'm getting to is if what the implications of this is, well, I think he committed this crime, but we're going to say that people will like him and say, jury might say, no, we're not going to charge. If we don't charge for those sorts of crimes, and the logical extension of that is, well, if you're in a venue, but like for example, if you were in a venue that's like 98% MAGA supporters. Right? Would it be okay then if that's where Jack Smith had to try Trump in an area that's 98% Trump, and Jack Smith said, fuck, these Trumpers will never vote to indict Trump, so no charges being brought. You would be okay with that?
Well, just as I'm not okay with it with Biden, I still think the charges should be brought. I do think that if Jack Smith said that, like if it was a special counsel report rather than an indictment, I mean, it would make sense, right?
It would not make sense. It would be absurd. I would criticize it as well. From a
strategic perspective, he acknowledged that there was some evidence present, but not enough to convince a jury. Which, by the way,
so we'll move on. We'll move on to what you want to talk about. But I'm going to say this last part real quick. Followers of me will notice when I've debated people like Pisco over and over on this, they always fault to. No, I'm not lumping you in with Pisco. Other than you're making the same sort of argument that he makes in
he's
a less
a smart guy,
way.
Yeah. And I'm not a lawyer.
Pisco. Right. Pisco will make this argument that anytime I bring up these obvious double standards, he'll default at the end to saying, and I'm quoting, there's prosecutorial discretion. In other words, in our system, we allow for example, if I see you technically going 2 miles over the speed limit, I don't have to charge you, right?
Well, so like if you were like a cop, right, you wouldn't have to I am breaking the law, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone going 2 miles over the speed limit doesn't get pulled over, but someone going 20 does. Yeah, if that's what you're getting at.
Right, and a prosecutor could decline to prosecute if they want. There are mitigating circumstances.
Part of that is to avoid overloading the justice system, correct?
Well, but that could be. I don't know that has much to do with it. I think part of it, like the reason for it, something like this. Let's say I'm going 90 mile an hour in a 50.
Oh, right, you think
and the
that's
cop
because
pulls
they
me
don't
over.
like Trump. Sorry, got it.
Let's say I'm going 90 in a 50, right? And they pull me over, and I say my wife's in labor. They're probably not going to charge me, right? They'd be like, "Oh shit, get him to the hospital." You see what I'm saying?
Around where I live, they might. They might ticket you.
But technically, I was egregiously violating the law.
Not technically.
Right?
Literally, you were egregiously violating the law.
But they have discretion to say there were mitigating circumstances that we declined to prosecute.
Yeah, but the Hur Report isn't about mitigating circumstances. It's about the ability to construct a case in front of a jury, which when we're talking about like a speeding stop, those are two very different things.
So what happens is constantly what we see is for almost the identical crimes, what happens is they charge Trump and the people around him as difficultly as possible and then make any excuse whatsoever to let people that are Trump's opponents off
Identical
the hook,
crimes,
including her,
different amounts of evidence.
including her saying, well, we have him dead to rights and we think he willfully retained, which literally is the definition of the law. But he might come off as dementia-addled and likable, so we're not going to charge him. It's bullshit.
Can I ask you a question just real quick? Would you take such an issue if they had indicted Biden but not indicted Trump over the double standard in the justice system?
Probably.
Okay. I mean, at least you're consistent.
Like, for example, I said this, right? Like, you can go through my recordings and hear this all the time. For example, there was that. You remember when Trump Jr. met this Russian spy in a fucking hotel? It was a big deal. I was like, I don't think he should be charged. I think, look, politics is fucking slimy. I hate a lot of shit about it. But if you want to talk to a foreigner and the foreigner says, I got fucking dirt on your opponent, I think that should be legal. If you're like, oh, I'll give you something for it. When I'm president, I promise you this. That's not legal.
That would not
right?
be legal.
But just to say, why shouldn't it be
No,
legal?
I said that would not be legal.
Right. So, but people were saying Don Jr. committed a crime. Don Jr., he talked to a Russian trying to get dirt in his opponents, right? I said, I don't think that's a crime. Then Hillary Clinton's team talked to a Russian, and not just trying, they did get dirt on Trump that happened to be misinformation. I also said that shouldn't be a
Hillary
crime.
Clinton. You're going to hear me defending her
But
even
listen,
less than Joe Biden, just for the
it has
record.
nothing to do with you defending
I
her.
don't
What
really
I'm
care.
doing is showing
Like,
my stance
I
on
think
it
she should
was
have been.
that
I
also
think she should probably. I think that for the
Listen.
email service, she probably should have been indicted. Yeah, I'll give you that one.
Listen, what I'm saying is that I said she also shouldn't be indicted with a crime. But if your stance was, no, I disagree, both should be indicted. I disagree with you, but at least that's a consistent
That's
position.
a position I'm maintaining.
My position here isn't that, Biden should be indicted and not Trump. I'm consistent in saying. Now, I would say I don't know if I would raise my voice
I wasn't
that
trying
much.
to portray that as your position. I was
I know,
trying
I'm
to.
just
I was trying
clarifying for everyone.
to elucidate a consistency or an inconsistency, and I think we got there. So
And
thank
what
you.
and I also say this: if it's a one-off, if this was the only thing, and they charged Trump and not Biden, I don't think it would necessarily be as big of a deal. I think it's still a big deal just because it's affecting our political system. But the problem is it's over.
Big deal. Come on.
It's over and over and over and over and over. Over and over and over.
Look, if you want to have an extended discussion about the double standard present in the justice system as a whole, then that would be a different debate I would have to prepare for. I only prepared for comparing the Hur Report to the Trump indictment.
Well, what we did successfully was we showed that now you're admitting, feel there's enough evidence that you would recommend an indictment. You just don't think that a judge.
Well, so me
what you said.
personally, sure.
Okay. And so the question is then why didn't Hur do it? And the only reason we could come up with is dementia.
No, that's not the
which is
only reason.
absurd.
Stop doing that.
Given up. I've asked you repeatedly, give me more reasons.
The reason is that he thought he couldn't convince a jury that he was guilty of a crime. Part of the reason that he thought he couldn't do that was because there wasn't enough evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Biden had intentionally done this.
All right. So if there wasn't enough evidence, what do you call him on recording multiple times saying this is classified
Wasn't
material?
enough evidence to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt.
That's not true. That's willfulness. You could say that, but it's bullshit.
I mean, you can call it bullshit, but that doesn't make it bullshit.
If I say right now, like, I'm going to go to the bank and rob them, and then the bank gets robbed and you find the money at my house, would you say that doesn't prove Rob willfully intended? There's still a lack of evidence.
No, but I would say that doesn't necessarily. If you just said, I'm going to rob the bank, and then the next step was we found the money at your house, I don't even think that necessarily proves you robbed the bank.
It would probably be good evidence.
It would be good evidence, sure, but it doesn't prove it on its own.
But it shows intent.
You know, if we had like, I don't know, like 6 months of text messages where you're telling people to move the money around after you stole it and not give it back to the bank after they've requested it repeatedly, and then your house gets raided by the cops and they find the money in your house, and the whole time you've been trying to like hide it from them, maybe even destroy part of it so that you couldn't be found with it, then I would say all of that combined, along with you saying, I think I want to rob the bank, probably indicates that, yeah, you robbed the bank.
What you're doing is saying, if you did more, here's a, like I say, if I did this, you say, if you did this and 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 this.
I was actually just basically citing, citing the Trump indictment.
So then what if I did this? What if I, over a course of months and months and months, kept admitting that I had classified material, then intentionally withheld it?
Come on, man.
Yes, it is.
It's not. He didn't, over the course of months and months and months, repeatedly admit that he had. No, he had. There was one phone call in October 2017 where he said that he found those documents at his Delaware home, and then there were two separate instances of him reading classified material out, whether knowingly or unknowingly, to his ghostwriter. That's not repeated over months and months and months and months.
Quote, at least 3 times Mr. Biden read classified notes from national security meetings to Swanser, nearly verbatim. For the first 2 incidents involved the same passage. On February 16, Biden appeared to explain to Swanser that he had a long meeting Security Council. It was probably classified. He said that again the next time. Then the third time, he said, I'm not sure if it's classified or not, and then read it out. So those took periods over a period of months, right? Those 3.
No, didn't it all happen in February, I believe was what it said, yeah.
You could be right, actually. February, 2 months. February 16th, April 10th. So no, you're incorrect.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. There was April, and then April
24th is the third incident.
I apologize.
So February. So over the course of those several months, that's February,
over the course
March,
of several
April,
months, 3 individual instances.
Plus, then the time he admitted to having the classified box. Plus, then he held on to the evidence for 7 years.
Hold on. We were just talking about admitting in like a recorded manner.
Okay, so we have 4 times. So your argument was, if you just said you were going to rob the bank once, we don't know. How about 4 times?
4 times with the span of about 2 or 3 months in between those 2 times, and then several months in between the next one, and then the money shows up in your house. No, sorry.
Bullshit.
You're just
full of shit.
You just get mad when I disagree with you, but I'm sorry, I'm being 100% honest with you.
It's just objectively stupid. It's an objectively stupid standard.
I am objectively stupid.
It is. All right, you want to talk about obstruction? Go ahead.
I'm curious if you think that what Trump did with regards to the obstruction was bad.
Well, first, let's ask this. Did they actually destroy anything?
Was the obstruction that Trump perpetrated bad?
I don't know. If it's as outlined, if he specifically intentionally held material, that's bad.
Okay. All right. That's all I needed to know.
That's okay. Did he destroy anything?
It says that he ordered people to destroy some stuff.
But they got all the material, correct?
I don't think he personally destroyed anything, no.
But he got, right, well, not just him personally, his team. They got the material they were looking for. There's no evidence that anything was destroyed. They have evidence that boxes were moved.
I'm pretty sure the evidence only shows that boxes were moved and that he told people to destroy them. I don't actually know if there was any evidence of anything destroyed.
Did anything that they requested of Biden's get destroyed?
Yeah, so actually that's interesting. There were recordings. When it comes to the ghostwriter, there were recorded conversations that he deleted the second, which, by the way, this is pretty fucking bad too. Deleted the second that he knew the special counsel was going to be investigating him. And then after that, he, I don't know, maybe had a come to Jesus moment where he realized how bad he fucked up, turned over his PC and hard drive to the FBI, turned over complete transcripts of the written transcripts of the recorded conversations. Not only that, the FBI was able to recover most of the deleted files from the PC.
What was that word you just used there? Most?
So are you going to Watergate me now?
No, what I'm going to do is say within the Trump situation, we're accused of obstructing in that they attempted to prevent materials from getting to the FBI,
the writer
which ultimately
surrendered the materials.
Please let me finish. That they were accused of obstructing by attempting to withhold material, which ultimately all made its way to the FBI, as far as we know. With the Biden team, what we know is that there was material requested that was destroyed, and then in an oh shit moment, that's basically what you said, they said, we better hand this over, and they were incapable of recrafting all of the material.
You know why that was?
Do I know why they were incapable of recrafting all the material? I would assume because when you try to digitally put something back together, sometimes there are certain pieces that
software
don't come
limitations.
Through.
There's fragmentations on that.
So,
however, I would just like to point out, you seem to imply that the surrendering of the material was equivalent in both cases. Need I remind you that Mar-a-Lago was stormed by the FBI to get some of those boxes back? It's not like Trump handed them all over willingly, as the ghostwriter and Biden did.
I know quite well.
Yeah,
right.
so I don't
but
think that's
nonetheless, when
equivalent.
just looking, we'll talk about that. I know what we're talking about right now is obstruction and the destruction of evidence. What
No,
we know
obstruction.
is that the
I stated that there was no
and-
destruction. I don't think you need to destroy
Okay,
evidence to obstruct.
That's true, but it is further obstruction to obstruct to the level that material is not recovered versus attempted obstruction to obstruct, but the material is eventually turned
are you
over,
trying?
even if
Are
it's
you then
unwillingly.
implying that the ghostwriter intentionally destroyed these specific sections?
What I'm implying is he intentionally destroyed it, and you admit that that was bad.
Yeah, it was fucking bad, but then he turned over written transcripts and his hard drive and PC so the FBI could try and recover them. And as far as I'm aware, they got most of that information back.
Why do you think he destroyed it?
I can't guess to someone else's mind state. He's a fucking partisan hack, probably because he was like, oh shit, I don't want Biden to get in trouble for anything.
So that's attempted obstruction. That would be similar if Trump said move the boxes, and then someone said, Trump, they got you on tape saying move the boxes. He said, oh, never mind, don't move the boxes.
I would say that what the ghostwriter did was attempted obstruction. What exonerated him in that case was his willingness to cooperate with the investigation immediately following the realization that, holy shit, that was a bad thing to do.
That's irrelevant to whether or not there was obstruction. The second part that I would ask is this.
It's very relevant to whether or not they think they could charge him.
How familiar are you? You seem to be a little more familiar than me when it comes to sort of computers and data and stuff like that. What level of...
No, I'm not.
We'll
I'm
assume
sorry.
I'm on two.
I didn't mean to falsely portray
sounded
myself.
like that. Anyways, let me ask you this, and I'll get a computer expert on and ask about this. Is it possible, let's say I had... We'll oversimplify this. I had a hard drive with 10 files on it, right? Is it possible for me to completely erase one so that it couldn't be recoverable, then erase the other 9, and then send that and say, oh shit, I accidentally erased this. Here, can you put it back together? Knowing full well that the one thing I didn't want them to see wouldn't be recoverable.
See, now we're getting conspiratorial. What reason do you have to believe that the ghostwriter would do that?
Well, it doesn't matter what my reason for it would be. The problem is that this would speak against the defense of they cooperated, because we can't be certain that all the material that was requested was returned if it's possible after deleting it to intentionally know they would be incapable of getting all of the material.
I mean, if we're just going to start appealing to conspiracism here as like a get out of jail free card, then I'm just going to say that Trump planned it the whole time. From the second he was elected, he knew that he wanted to retain these documents and sell them to the Saudis and the Russians. And I don't need to justify
that's
that.
Fine. You can say that.
Why he did
what
it,
I'm saying is that you, just like her, just like Smith and the rest of the people, constantly engage in this double standard when there are things that
you can't just declare the double standard when you haven't established it beyond. I don't think they like Trump.
That's not true. That's not true. Both sides obstructed. Yes or no? You even said it that you thought he did it intentionally. That's clear case obstruction.
Yes.
Let me ask you this. If I steal a bunch of cocaine out of the police weapon locker and then feel bad about it and the next day return it, did I commit a crime?
Yes.
Okay, that's what we're talking about.
Do you think they would charge you? Hold on, wait. I have a question. Do you think that they would charge you the same if you didn't return it and they had to come get it from you? Do you think they would treat you the same?
Probably not.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
It would maybe wait. It might be the same charge, but perhaps a judge in the sentencing phase would be. Or rather,
okay, sure.
That's usually, nonetheless, I would still be charged. So the question remains: when we're starting on a discussion of obstruction, on some ways, I'll concede what Trump's alleged to have done is worse obstruction than what the Biden's group is alleged to.
Sure, which way?
On one particular. In one particular way, we could see that actually what Biden's team was worse. They destroyed material that wasn't fully recoverable. Yes or no?
Trump's team didn't do that. Transcripts were provided for those recorded conversations that matched up with what they were able to recover and helped them fill in the missing pieces. I don't think that it's fair to assert that it wasn't fully recoverable. Yes, the literal audio files were not fully recoverable, but the conversations were not lost.
It is fair, specifically when we're talking about conversations where one or two words could make a difference in regards to intent. Because a transcript might accidentally or purposely leave out.
See, now you're appealing to the conspiracism again. Like who? How am I supposed to address any of these points if you could just go, well, what if he was Biden's best friend and really wanted to get him out of jail?
Okay, let me ask you this: if the FBI subpoenas digital records from me, and I give them 90% of what they want, but 10% of it I say, I don't feel like giving that to you, but here's a transcript of what it said. Are they going to accept that?
Are you also providing a fragmented recording that they can compare the transcript to?
Sure, and that 10%'s not there. I'm like, sorry, I deleted it. You can put it back together, and then they can't put it all back together.
Would
they accept that?
They seem to have in this case.
My point would be they would say, no. There's a reason we want the physical evidence and not just your transcript
is
of it.
Physical evidence.
No, but the transcript is physical evidence that I have created. For example, let's say we're doing a transcript of this debate, right? And I say fuck, and I don't want that in there for some reason, and I leave it out. It's not a big deal, but that's not a complete, accurate transcript of everything that was said.
So,
this transcript relies. The transcript relies on the physical recording and typing of someone, and they could leave out words or stuff, or there could be stuff said in the background. All I'm saying is there's a reason that the investigators wanted the official digital material and recordings as opposed to just a transcript.
Yeah, but they got both.
There's a reason. No, they didn't. They got almost all of the digital, but not all, and they got the transcript.
Okay. So then you're trying to imply that somewhere in this, and we'll just use the numbers that I know they might not be 100% accurate, but the ones that we've been using in our hypotheticals, that this missing 10% is somehow the smoking gun evidence that's going to convict Biden?
That's not what I'm saying. Similarly, I could ask you, are you saying the evidence that was in those boxes were the smoking gun evidence that was going to convict Trump?
I don't think we needed a smoking gun. He was pretty fucking stupid and open with everything he did.
The point is, it doesn't matter if that evidence was damning to Biden or not. What matters is it's obstruction.
Yeah, but if you read on the Hur Report, he said that even considering that the willingness to cooperate with the investigation didn't seem like he was going to be able to establish to a jury that they actually were intending to directly obstruct the investigation, rather that they just fucking panicked. Which is probably what happened.
Why don't you just cut to brass tacks and say, in D.C., everyone loves Biden, so there's no fucking chance they convict him of anything.
Do you really
if
think
it means
that's
Trump
true?
Being elected. Yes.
You know how many Republicans are in D.C.?
Not many. It's something like 90% Democrat.
Isn't it like, don't you guys have the House majority right now?
Dude, the jury pool's not going to be made up of congressional leaders. It's going to be made up of people
You're talking about in D.C. And also, if we're going to go down that logic, as I've stated twice before, Hur is a conservative. If anybody's ideologically motivated to nail Biden, it would be a conservative, yeah?
That's bullshit. It has nothing. The battle has nothing to do with conservatism versus liberalism. The battle has to do with the establishment versus Trump. It's the same way, right? It's the same way of saying, what do you mean James Comey did bad shit at the FBI? He's a registered Republican, so that's impossible. He couldn't have been against Trump, even though we could literally see from his own words and actions when he was. It's the same argument.
Just because the argument to you seems analogous doesn't even necessarily mean that it's one that I would make.
Okay, so your argument is Hur is a Republican, and therefore he wouldn't do this.
No,
but that's completely different. You would never say Comey is a Republican, and therefore he wouldn't be corrupt.
I presented that point as a counter to your idea that everybody in D.C. loves Biden so much that they'll just jerk themselves into oblivion to try and save him.
Because you are not understanding. If you get arrested in D.C. tomorrow, and you have a jury trial, is the jury trial going to be made up of Cory Booker and Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren?
You made the claim that part of the reason that they're not going after him is because everybody in D.C. loves Joe Biden so much. I don't find that to be true. Right. Could you substantiate that a little bit?
Yes, if the argument is a jury wouldn't convict because he's likable and has dementia, I'm saying in an election season where the average person, the overwhelming of people in D.C. absolutely despise Donald Trump, that this jury pool would be made up of. They absolutely despise Donald Trump and they like Joe Biden, that there is no fucking chance that they would be able to get a conviction on just about any charge. Because at the end of the day, even if they thought Biden was guilty, they'd be like, oh, fuck, if we convict, that pretty much is assuring us that Donald Trump will be president. We ain't going to do that shit.
Doesn't Biden have like a historically low approval rating? I don't actually think that many people do like him. You know that from a leftist perspective, we're pretty mad about whole Israel-Palestine thing. I know, at least from my camp, and that's not just us. Well,
I don't know what to say. It's not just liking Joe Biden. It's also knowing if you convict Joe Biden that Donald Trump will win the presidency. And if you're here to tell me that the average person...
So now we're adding another layer then. Okay.
I don't know what to say. Like, I just think that we're going to have to agree to disagree because I live in reality and you don't. If you think that the overwhelming jury poll in D.C. isn't favorable to Biden,
can you show me that jury poll?
Yeah, you want to see? Let's look.
Sure.
So D.C. is one of the most Democrat cities in the country.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm a
no.
registered Democrat, and I don't like Joe Biden. I present myself as a piece of evidence.
Okay. So let's see. 76% registered Democrat, 6% Republican.
Where are you seeing this? Wait. Is that just like the voting delineation in DC? Like who votes which, like on average? Who votes where?
As of March 31st, 2016, Democrats make up 76% of registered voters in the District of Columbia, while 6% represent registered Republicans.
Okay, I know this is probably confusing to a Republican, but Democrats don't necessarily think of the whole team sports thing. We're perfectly fine to criticize our quarterback if we think he sucks at playing.
Bullshit. That's absolute bullshit. In fact, it's provably bullshit. The Democrats, particularly as an elective body, continually stick together. Are you telling me right now that there's less infighting with Democrats than Republicans?
That's a tough one. I don't know if I could just answer that off the top of my head.
There's clearly not, dude. They vote unanimously on almost everything. Maybe there'll be one or two Democrats that peel off. Almost every single piece of legislation of import, they vote unanimously.
Well, so now we're off of the voters who are going to be comprising the jury, and we're back on the legislators. So which is it? Which one are we talking about?
Well, you're fair. That's fair. That is a different distinction. But it shows in general that when it comes to politics, that Democrats at the political level stick together.
It shows that the DNC sticks together, but as does the GOP.
Certainly true.
But in terms of the voter base, I don't think that's necessarily the fact. I know there's people, I know there's Republicans who don't like Trump. So, like, I don't think that just because you vote a certain party means that you ideologically fall in line with everything that the party establishment tells you.
Okay, I'm not going to discuss this anymore with you because it's absolutely fucking laughable. Anyone who remotely pays attention knows that Democrat and left-leaning people over and over and over will prefer their ideology and will stick together in lockstep to obtain power, particularly when it comes to court cases and other venues like that. They will convict
anti-Zionist Democrats critical of Biden.
I sat there and listened to you screed, right? Like, they will convict Trump for anything. There is a rape allegation that comes from the plot of a Law and Order SVU episode from years ago for some woman that says I was in this dress that didn't even exist until 3 years after the fact, and Trump raped me in public in a department store. Yes, absolutely, they say. Guilty, fucking convict them. They don't care. They hate the orange man, and they understand the political ramifications, and these people are more likely than Republicans overwhelmingly to do anything they can in the legal system to take down Trump and to protect their interest and people that are going against Donald Trump. You can say that's not the case. That's fucking fine. We're at loggerheads here. Anyone who's remotely paying attention knows that's the case. And I have no interest in arguing this obvious point of reality if you're just going to willfully ignore it. You saying, but some Democrats are mad about Biden's Palestinian thing. Yep, absolutely, totally agree. What's that? You voting for Trump? You're mad about him with the Palestinian thing. Voting for Trump?
Your claim was that all Democrats fall ideologically in line with their party.
I didn't say all. I said that it would be almost impossible that basically Joe Biden in this political context would never be indicted for any crime in D.C. because they would understand the politics of it, and it's overwhelmingly Democrat, and that's who the jury pool would be made up of, and they're not going to invite... The proof's in the pudding. He's literally admitting that he has classified material in a fucking box, and they're not charging him because they say, well, a jury would find him sympathetic.
So you're saying that you believe that even if the jury, if let's say this got to a criminal case, right, if he was actually indicted rather than just a special counsel report, and the jury was comprised of 12 registered Democrats who are all fervently anti-Zionist and highly critical of Biden, you still think that they would not convict him?
Yes, absolutely, 100%
Okay,
confidence.
what evidence do you have to support that?
Because they would... Are you an anti-Zionist?
I'm definitely more supportive of the Gazan cause.
And are you upset with Biden about that? Who are you voting for?
I'm voting for Biden if he's the Democratic nominee.
Oh, I rest my case.
But that doesn't mean that I have implicit support of everything he does. It means that I find him the lesser of two evils.
That's right. And so when you're a jurist and you're deciding...
I don't know what that has to do with convicting him.
When you're a jurist and you're deciding and say, if I convict Joe Biden, that means Donald Trump's going to win the presidency. You ain't going to convict
I think you
Joe
have a
Biden.
much higher opinion of how principled people like Democrats have of some of these positions. I think that there's like plenty of people. I mean, you and I both exist on Twitter. We've seen the like reeing from like annoying leftists about the shit that Biden doesn't do that they wish he would do. Like I think there's plenty of people who just yeah, we just want to stick it to
I'm
him.
done talking
Plus,
about it. There's no way I'm going to convince you.
There's plenty of leftists that aren't even voting in the upcoming election because they don't find either.
I'm done discussing this with you. I think that it's self-evident. You disagree with me. There's nothing more
to say. Of course I disagree with you. That's why we're debating, Rob.
No, on this particular point, like whatever. Do you have anything else that you wanted to talk about these classified doc cases?
I mean, I'll just assert that you failed to establish the double standard throughout the entire time.
Wait. By all means, we'll give you a closing statement. But I mean,
no,
do you have any other
topics? That's it. I will assert that you have failed to establish your case.
Okay, that's your closing statement? You can have the final statement if you want. You're a guest on my show, so if you want the final statement, that's fine.
Vote blue,
I'm going to give a closing statement.
Unfortunately.
Okay, so that's it. Now I'll give my final statement, and then you can shout out your channel again, and you cool with that? That's good. I get to bed at a reasonable hour. Holy shit.
Yeah, I wake up pretty early too, so I'm actually quite glad for that. I appreciate you saying we could start early. Always works out for me.
Now wait, okay, so here's my final statement. I feel that it is evident based on this that the double standard has been established. You could see how my opponent constantly waffled, was put in a corner, and then had to deny the things he said. We started off talking about why this debate came about. The reason this debate came about, and he agreed, was because I was having a discussion on Twitter with left-wing streamers that I debated that said the most compelling piece of evidence they saw that on its own was a smoking gun that proved the guilt of Donald Trump was when he admitted to having some sort of classified evidence on tape and was sharing that with a writer. And I asked him, do you think that alone would be reason to convict Donald Trump? And he said yes. Immediately, the walkback started as I proved that Biden did that multiple times. Then he walked back and had to say things like, well, if he handed the documents over in a reasonable amount of time, it would have been okay. Then when I illustrated him that Biden took over 7 years or 6 or 7 years to hand back those documents, then that standard moved again. What happens is people want to say because Trump obstructed, which is a different classification of crime altogether, that's reason enough to charge him not just for the obstruction, but also for the mishandling of classified docs. And when Biden did it, well, we can't charge him because reasons. There's evidence. But we went specifically through the evidence, and that's why I continually asked him. So, for example, we went continually through the evidence with the Afghanistan boxes. He couldn't give anything other than say, well, one piece of evidence isn't sufficient and dementia. And then when I said, yeah, that's ridiculous that that's what it's come to, it's absurd, he shouldn't get off the hook because people were saying in 2017, Biden had dementia so bad that we can't charge him for the crimes he was committing then. That is insane. That is absolutely asinine. It's ridiculous, particularly when the Biden administration's out there saying, how dare you accuse us of having dementia? Which I've said is the entire argument in the first place. That instead of saying, oh, Joe Biden has dementia or he doesn't, saying, okay, Democrats, you're right, he doesn't have dementia, charge him with the crime. Right? They've successfully shifted the narrative. It's absolutely absurd. Then my opponent also says that actually Donald Trump has dementia. But conveniently, his dementia started exactly in 2022, 2023. So he still can be charged with the crimes he allegedly committed. Right? It's absolutely farcical and nonsensical. And I outlined the evidence of double standards that occurred at the FBI and other institutions over and over prior. So to just then, at the end, we're left to default to, but I trust her, take it up for her, I'm not a legal expert. You can see the absurdity of that position. What it shows is that Hur has outlined the evidence that shows obvious crimes, admitting to having classified documents. That's willful retaining, admitting to saying these things are probably classified, and still voluntarily not only reading, but at one point showing the material to his ghostwriter. These are obvious crimes. And the fact that he's not being charged because he cooperated, which he didn't, he held on to this material for 7 years. If he would have immediately turned it over, you could say that's cooperating. The other thing is this, we didn't get into this, and you could respond to this part if you want because we didn't get into it. The truth is this double standard was why they went after Trump in the first place. Why did NARA seemingly never notice anyone has classified documents missing except Donald Trump? In fact, the guy in charge of NARA that's a clear Trump hater that's been shown through his post and things like that, he said initially as Trump was walking out the door, I suspect he has classified documents. Meanwhile, classified documents were going around the Penn Biden Center, Biden's garage, Biden's Virginia home. He's reading stuff, and somehow they never knew. And they didn't know about Mike Pence, and they didn't know about only Trump. They initially suspected. And that's the truth. What happened is, it's just like you could say when people that talk about double standards with policing when it comes to racial bias and things like that. They'll continually prove, like, imagine the cops continually pull over black people. Your car was making a funny sound. I mean, license and registration, license and registration. At some point, you might find out that their license and registration aren't up to snuff. But the question is, why are you only concerned about those particular types of people? That's exactly what happened. Trump was cooperating. He cooperated quite significantly over and over. He voluntarily allowed the FBI to come in. He allowed them to search his entire home. He allowed them to see that he had it secured behind locks and other such things. His lawyers were arguing because, unlike with Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and a jury could find this, actually has a claim that he's allowed to have all these materials because the mere fact he took them as president means he had declassification authority, which Biden didn't have. Now, you might disagree, but this is another argument that jurists could decide. And certainly if there's a Trump supporting jurist on there, they may say, I think the president has the ability to declassify, therefore he didn't commit any of these crimes. And yet despite that, the FBI, instead of continuing to cooperate with his lawyers, decided to kick down the fucking door in another completely unprecedented action. It's very reminiscent to the Trump-Russia collusion situation, where they have this corrupt investigation and they can't get Trump for what they're accusing him of, colluding with Russians. So what do they get him for? He obstructed. He was against us and our over-odious intrusions into his life as president. The same could be said here. He's treated differently in every aspect of the legal system, and then maybe it's not the smartest thing to fight back, but when he does fight back, they go, see obstruction. Oh, and our guys committed the same crime? Well, we're not going to charge him because he has dementia, but he doesn't have dementia. How dare you accuse him? But he cooperated after holding this material for 7 years. Another thing we didn't talk about that I would love to get into was, even though Biden possibly is a defense of having classified material in his notebooks when he's vice president, he certainly doesn't have any excuse whatsoever from having materials when he was a senator. He's not allowed to take those documents home. There are special places called SCIFs that you have to read those classified documents. Yet the Hur Report shows that they found documents from his tenure as senator, which means that he took those documents when he was senator. So all of this adds up to Joe Biden clearly committed a crime. It is my preference that for the crime of mishandling classified information, I think that we either need to charge all of these people or charge none of these people. But instead, we only selectively charge Trump. And there's not really a compelling argument that my opponent made or anyone else is going to be able to make to explain why this isn't a blatant double standard, other than just saying, well, blame her, he's a Republican, and Biden has dementia, and juries would have let him off. If we allow this sort of thing, and anyone who's paying attention, JC, I understand you don't agree with me on this point, but I think we run danger of giving practical immunity to politicians because we say we would never charge them for any crime because as long as they're being charged in a district where people favor Democrats and they're afraid that that indictment would harm Democrats as a whole, particularly when it comes to a national presidential race, then they have an incentive not to indict them. Therefore, we don't bring charges in the first place. If the crime was committed, the charges should have been brought. Hur went out of his way to come up with absurd legal defense after absurd legal defense. One of the things that I asked that we didn't get to at the end of it was, or in the middle of this discussion, do you think Joe Biden would even bring up the I have dementia defense in front of a jury? Because a jury would only accept that defense if it was, I don't think he would have. He's not now. Why isn't he saying it now to the American people?
He's saying it with his actions.
If that's the case, and you're a prosecutor and you know, I know this fucking guy committed this crime and he's going to be out there screaming, I don't have dementia, then you should charge it. And if the jury decides to be like, fuck it, we don't care, we think he has dementia, that's on them. But at least it incurs what should have happened, that the crime was committed and you did your due diligence to try to go out there. Coming out with you can see that it's completely different with Hur, how he went out of his way to be like, here's all the potential legal theories of the defense. So even though I think he committed this crime, we're not going to charge because I don't think I could get a jury to convict. That's always what they do. It's the same thing they did with Hillary Clinton. No reasonable prosecutor. It's bullshit. That's where the prosecutorial discretion comes in. They constantly always say when it comes to these people that are Trump's opponents, well, it looks like there's a crime here, but we don't think a reasonable prosecutor or jurist would ever convict, so we're going to let it off the hook. They don't give Trump that. Look at some of the cases with Trump. He's being charged in the Stormy Daniels case. For what? Well, for doing the same thing Hillary Clinton did. Except Clinton did it more obviously. She failed to disclose payments for the Steele dossier that was used to spy on Trump. What's she given? Small fine. Don't do that. Trump's criminally charged. For what? For paying an extortionist that threatened to out him. That's not a campaign expenditure. They rely on the fact that that expenditure was purely to benefit his campaign. If that's the case, then getting a haircut's a campaign expenditure. And yet Trump's being charged with the crime and Hillary's team wasn't. Or the Ernegorn case in New York, where he's accused of over-evaluating his properties. Clearly bullshit. Clearly a bullshit case for reasons I could get into if JC wants at a later time. So the idea that like, oh no, these prosecutors are very reasonable and they look and they say, oh, what are the possible defenses? It's bullshit. They know that they'll be able to find juries in these left-wing areas that will convict Trump of anything. Oh, need I forget the E. John Carroll case that we already talked about? And they know that they'll let Biden off the hook. And for prosecutors to say, well, therefore, we're not going to charge the people like Biden, but we will charge people like Trump, allows people, not necessarily like JC here, but allows people on the left to say, oh, see, Biden didn't do anything wrong. And it benefits Biden massively politically. It allows the media to run with this narrative. Trump's a criminal, but not Biden. Trump's a criminal, but not Hillary. When actually it's just a double standard. And lastly, we can see the evidence is overwhelming that the people at the FBI hate Trump. The evidence of bias, even from the IG report, is obvious. The question is just whether or not they acted on that bias. So when you see the two-tiered system that you constantly see, there's one set of rules for Trump and another set, and you see the messages show that there are people at the FBI talking about things like insurance policies to stop Donald Trump, and you can see Rosenstein accusing of wearing a wire to get the 25th Amendment, or Comey and his obvious actions, holding I'm with her mugs and shit like that. It's evident that the establishment institutions in this country hate Donald Trump, and they'll do anything possible to take him down. It's a double standard, and I wish my opponent would look at it more clearly. I hope he looks into things like the Russiagate hoax and the unlawful FISA warrants that was used to spy on Trump, and starts to realize that there's a very clear-cut emerging pattern that this case immediately fits into. That's it.
Russiagate wasn't a hoax. They did find evidence of collusion.
What was the evidence of collusion? Go ahead.
Rob, you have a good rest of your night. After listening to you repeatedly strawman in your closing, I'm not really interested in continuing the conversation.
Cool. I'll say this real quick. At least you came on. I don't think you did a great job, but you did come on, and I'll give you credit for that.
I'm always willing to have a conversation with anybody who's willing to engage with me.
Okay. All right, man. Do you want to shout your channel out?
Sure. And then I have one other, completely off-topic thing that I wanted to say to you. The Big JC is on that's on YouTube and Kick, and then the Big JC on Twitch is on Twitch. Rob, I heard about your dog. I work with dogs. I'm very, very passionate when it comes to dogs. I'm really sorry to hear that you're going through some rough times, and I hope that things get better soon.
Thank you. Really, I really mean that. Thank you.
She's okay.
Yeah, we all go, and she's getting old, but I hope that she has a happy time, is comfortable, and she has many more years ahead of her. So thank you.
Well, you have a good rest of your night, man. Thanks for the conversation.
You too. Thank you. It's very nice. Thank you.
Oh my God. My brain. Yeah, that definitely did not go as well as I thought it would. I wish it had gone better. I think that's what everybody would say, of course. He, as predicted, did cling fucking desperately to the whole unlawful retention. Unfortunately for Rob, intent, with regards to, the willfulness standard, that's what we were trying to, so he didn't really want to go in on that. He didn't want to go in on the obstruction. And again, this is from a layman's perspective. It seems to me that the evidence provided to substantiate the obstruction, there's nothing that invalidates it from being used to substantiate or being used as evidence elsewhere. As I understand it, the big part of the whole Trump indictment was the fact that all of this preponderance of evidence sort of presented itself. There was they were able to establish the willfulness standard with the phone call, or with the recorded conversation, and then the conversation with his PAC member, and that was just whether or not he was willfully retaining those documents. Anybody who examines this information in a good faith manner can see the clear differences between Joe Biden and Donald Trump with regards to their conduct. Trump repeatedly was where is it? Yeah. He told his attorney to tell the FBI they didn't have documents, told his buddy to move and hide them, told his attorney to destroy them or hide them. He initially gave up some of the material, not all of it, when they asked for, I think a little less than half the boxes, maybe a little bit more than half the boxes, were finally surrendered on January 17th of 2022, which is almost a full year after he left office as president. I I think there's a massive, and I wish I had gone more into this. I think there's a massive difference between Trump having conscious knowledge of the boxes and their whereabouts at basically all times, directing the movement of them, and Biden saying, "Oh shit, I found some classified materials in my basement. Can somebody take care of this?" I mean, this is I expected about this. We got what was expected. I don't know. This will go up in the YouTube channel because it's content. It's not content that makes me look great, but this channel is going to be a sort of a chronicle of my growth as a debater, and a record of my political journey. A lot of what I do is for my own personal benefit. It's not because I expect to like make it big as a debater, make bank or anything like that. I don't think I'm nearly talented enough for something like that. I do it because I enjoy it, and I wish it were easier to find good faith discussions with the opposition rather than misrepresentations and obfuscations of the facts at hand. But I did expect that going into this conversation, so it's not like I'm surprised. All in all, though, I'm absolutely I'd be down to debate Rob again, as weird as it sounds. Every time I talk to him, it's been twice now, I learn a little bit more about how to navigate these conversations. I think the big mistake was right at the beginning when I allowed him to pigeonhole me into that one specific thing. I should never have commented on that, because no jury would ever like that. He was totally correct in pointing out that it's a standard that I then rescinded on, where I'm like, okay, well, one piece of evidence, oh, well, blah, blah. No, he's absolutely right on that. As unfortunate as it is, it is correct that if I'm going to say that one phone call or that one recorded conversation was enough to convict Trump I would say it's enough to provide evidence towards the willful intent, but if it's enough in and of itself to prove obstruction, probably not. I stand by what I said, that if he had returned the documents right after, if somebody had gone, because that could be indicative of a conversation where maybe Trump didn't know that he wasn't supposed to have this stuff, because they hadn't, I think that's, well, you know what I really should have said? They started, NARA started going after this stuff in May of 2021. The audio recording of him showing people, it was in July, and the PAC member meeting was like between August and September, like right around there. So this was after NARA had already requested the return of the documents. He knew that they were supposed to give them back. Like, they had to raid Mar-a-Lago to get the rest of this stuff back. There is no evidence or instance of anything like that happening with regards to any of the other retention of classified documents that happened with any of the other actors. I think it's outrageous that Rob, someone who portrays himself as constantly obsessed with rooting out corruption in our government system, just said that he's fine if they don't charge Trump or Biden for retention of classified documents, because according to him, it's something that everybody does. I don't know about y'all, but I'm personally of the opinion that just because it's something everyone does doesn't mean that it makes it right. Someone who seems to claims to understand logical fallacies, he forgot one of the most basic ones: argumentum ad populum. Just because everybody else is doing, or like your mom always told you back in the day, if everybody else jumped off the bridge, would you jump off it too? The answer is no. It's important to have these principles, stances that we can apply to our real life situations, and sort of coalesce them into solutions for our problems. We need to be able to stand solid on this stuff. And if you're someone who's against corruption, I'm not sure how you can then say, but it's okay for them to have the classified documents. For what purpose? Because everybody does it. Obviously, that's a standard that wouldn't hold up anywhere else. I'm pretty tired, so I'll probably bother and bitch around with this tomorrow. If anybody I did see some messages in chat. I'm sorry I didn't actually read them. I was pretty focused on the debate. So, personal news, I do have a day off. It's going to fluctuate, but I have my schedule's changed, so now I have a day off during the week as well as Saturdays off. I'm planning to make streaming a regular thing with both of those days. So look forward to a regular Saturday chill stream and then a fluctuating weekly politics / debate stream. We'll probably work in some Warhammer in there too. I like doing the paint stream. I rewatched some of the footage and it looks shit. My camera's quite bad, but I can look into investing in a new camera if that becomes something that I do more frequently. All in all, I am grateful for the conversation. I'm grateful for the opportunity to flex my chops, as it were, and I'm hoping for more honest interlocutors in the future. But again, I would be totally willing to discuss anything with Rob again. I am proud of myself for relatively keeping him on topic, because as I recall, when we had our discussion on Vosh's rhetoric regarding like Patriot prayer and wanting people to be armed and that sort of thing, I did just kind of let him drag me all over the map. This time I was a lot more rigid. Like, I didn't say that. Oh yeah, that was the other thing. I was very good at recognizing, I feel I was good at recognizing when I was being strawmanned and when to not take a position that was being ascribed to me broadly. I don't know who Rob would have preferred to be debating, probably Pisco. And to be honest, Pisco probably would have handled this debate a lot better. Pisco's a lawyer. Pisco knows the legal ins and outs of these things in the technical sense that I never could hope to prepare for within like the span of 2 days. But given that I only had that amount of time to prepare, yeah, I feel okay about it, I guess. I presented my case as best that I could, with Rob, shouting over me and trying to obscure, etc. Yeah, I'm gonna go upstairs and I'm gonna just kind of veg out. My brain is pretty fried. So if you're still in chat, thanks for stopping by. I'll be way more interactive with chat in upcoming streams. I will definitely make an effort to do so. Any other major debates will also be tweeted about on the channel. Those will probably be separate from the weekly streams, but weekly streams are going to be open debate. So if anybody wants to hop on, if we're moots on Twitter, or even if we're not, if you have a contention with me, a disagreement with me, I'm always willing to discuss it. I'm a layman. I'm an idiot. I'm not very intelligent, and I'm not very well read, but I am very eager to have conversations with people I disagree with, because I think that's the only way that we achieve synthesis and understanding in this crazy mixed up world. So until then, blessings, my children, from Jesus Christ, and we'll see you next time.